All right, thank you very much for having me here. I'm honored to be a part of this. This is so cool, and I just want to say, whatever you are feeling and you're watching, just make sure you also can help by donating and by auctioning some of the pieces. The cause is amazing, and I'm grateful to be part of it. I want to sing this song from Eric Clapton called "Change the World," and I love the idea that we can probably change the world one person at a time, maybe one mind at a time, maybe one community at a time. And I'm gonna sing this for you guys now. If I can reach the stars, born down for you, shine it on my heart, so you can see the truth. Yeah, that this love I have inside, it's everything you see. But for now I find it's only in my dreams, and I can change the world. I will be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world. And if I could be king, even for a day, I'd take you as my queen. I'd have no other way, no, no. And our love would rule this kingdom we made, yeah. Till then I'd be a fool, wishing for a day, yeah, that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world, baby, if I could change all the world. Oh, that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world, baby, if I could change the world, baby, if I could change the world. Oh, baby, I could change your world. Na 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 na. Oh, baby, I could change your world.
Welcome to the inaugural edition of Black Momentum, and thank you for sparing some of your precious time to be with us as we kick off the start of a long but a good fight. I would like to start by expressing my deep appreciation to our CEO, Tariq Hussein, who approved this initiative. It is a great honor to be a part of an organization that never shies away from big moments. and always strive to do what's right. Most of my friends cannot speak publicly on racial issues. The economic price is too high for not all corporations truly embracing an open and honest dialogue on racial inequalities in America and around the world. A special thank you to our investors in the US and around the globe who trust that we are doing the right thing and have renewed their total confidence in us during this challenging season. Thank you. Thank you to the speakers, to the panelists, to the performers who agreed to team up with us to deliver this exceptional show of unity for the great of good. And to the amazing team at Bervan Foundation, the Corona Opportunity Fund, Bervan Capital, thank you. Thank you for buying into the vision. Thank you for all the sleepless nights of hard work you guys have put into this to ensure that we got here in one piece, as we are all getting used to this new normal of new life, online work, social media events. Ladies and gentlemen, these are sensitive times. The world is torn by a viral pandemic that has affected all of us in so many different ways. As we attempt to survive, to recover, and to reinvent ourselves beyond COVID-19, another storm hit America and followed all over the world. George Floyd, an African American, was caught on video, murdered by police officers. The video allowed the whole world to witness and react in an unprecedented show of solidarity for what is right and for Black communities overall. At Bervan Capital, we're primarily an investment company. We operate in private equity, venture capital, asset management. Our company was founded under the principles of generating an increased wealth while impacting the world in a pragmatic way that makes us and the people around us improve their ways of life. We do not engage in things we do not understand. Because we have worked so hard over the years, we have the privilege to choose who we do business with based on our shared values and aligned interests. We believe in self-accountability. We believe in transparency. We believe in pragmatism in everything we get involved in. We believe that you cannot grow just by yourself. You have to have friends. That's why we do a lot of cross-border dealings in the US and around the world for this globalization of efforts make us stronger than local partners. In today's world where most people like to do the talk, we strive to walk the walk by putting our money, our time, and our name where our mouth is. In 2018, we established Bervan Foundation to give back to underprivileged community in the US, in Africa, and around the world where we can find some specific project that directly and truly affect a large majority of underprivileged communities. When coronavirus hit us, that was February, we were just coming off an amazing trip in Doha, Qatar, and we felt a calling to really step up and do our part. We supported governments, hospitals, and civilians in supplying goods, medical and personal equipment, donating through our Corona Opportunity Fund. Last month, we had the opportunity and the great honor to partner with Andrea Bocelli Foundation in Italy, where we provided some financial assistance to support healthcare institutions and increase access to digital education for Italian students. Today, we're taking on another fight, a fight that Black-led organizations like Martin Luther King's led organizations, the Black Lives Matters, Colin Kaepernick, and so many other amazing organizations out there have been fighting for years and decades. We're stepping in because it's a wake-up call, especially for me as a Black person, to look at what is happening around me, to see the response from within and outside America, and ask myself a question when I sleep at night. What is it you did when this happened? What was your contribution? How did you utilize the resources at your disposal to make this situation an opportunity for the next generation to benefit from it? We have seen the riots, we have seen the protests, we have seen the claims. We understand the need of those things, because without those things, we wouldn't be having this conversation. They have done an amazing job bringing up the concern. But the downside is that we have seen this movie over and over. A Black man get murdered or shot. The media talk about it. The politics use it. The celebrities use it. The PR use it. 36 months after, the movie start over and nothing really happened. So our question really is, what is the sustainable solution to this? How to bring forward something that allows Black communities to be self-empowered and to have a systemic, proactive, economical platform where children can take care of children, who takes care of grandchildren. And with that economic power, they have the ability to actually make the lives of their families and their communities better. So we think it's not enough. We think what they do is great, but we think we can work together to be complementary. At Bervant, what we do and what we know to do, we know how to build companies, build business. We know how to select people. We know how to pick the best out of people and make them leaders. We know how to raise capital. We know how to manage money. And we understand how to make a company go global based on the amazing platform that we have. So we decided to step in and contribute with our skill set. On the economic side, we want African Americans, Africans, Black people living in Europe, in Latin America, wherever it is. We want them to have the opportunity to tap into the Bervant's platform so that we can help them, so that we can empower them to be able to be self-sufficient so they can turn around and help the next generation. That's why we thought about the Black Momentum Class 2021. As everything we do, we like to be pragmatic, we like to be realistic, we like it to be something that we will be able to do no matter what. In this specific instance, we are selecting 50 Black entrepreneurs, mainly from the US and around the world, to either come to New York if the health conditions allow, or to do it digitally or remotely. We are going to get to know those kids. We are going to work with them. We are going to understand what makes them stick. And we are going to give them the tools to become great leaders and go back to their communities and really be an inspiration for all those other kids who aspire to things that have never been brought to them. This is what we plan to do with the Black Momentum. And as everything else, when we have a great idea, we went out there and we surrounded ourselves with amazing partners, advisors, mentors, and we are going to have more of them over the next few months to help us craft this platform in a way that we can compete at a high level. Because as a Black person, I understand that you have to work more because nothing was really given to you. And we would like to instill the very same principles to all those kids or entrepreneurs that are going to join our program. So we are here today to ask you for your time, your understanding, your contribution to help us do this right. These are tough times. We are all bleeding. We are all struggling. The cause is worthy. We would like you to join us, to come with us so that all together we can make an amazing impact on the world. If we are able to get 50 kids from rough, historically disadvantaged community, and we are able to put them in a position to have a brand exposure, entrepreneurial mentorship, great support system, and great relationship, we believe that those kids will be able to employ dozens, hundreds, or thousands of their peers, or even employ people who are not from their race. And those kids will be able, when they succeed, to give back to other kids who won't have to ask for charity in order to evolve. This, coupled with what all the Black-led organizations are doing, actually prompt us towards a further step to racial wealth inequality, because the disproportion is just unbelievable. And we are going to hear about this throughout the event. We're extremely happy to have a great set of speakers, presenters today. We are going to have an amazing time. We have assembled on the auctions amazing prizes that have been signed and donated by celebrities around the globe. I am sure that each of you guys will be able to find in the auction what they're looking for, or something they can get for a donation they made. If you do not find anything on the auction page, please make a donation. This is not something you can watch and really feel outside. Don't be on the sideline. This thing concerns all of us. We have to come together and we have to do this right. This is not something to just watch and say, oh, I don't really know about this. Regardless of the amount, regardless of your level of implication, don't stay on the sidelines. Be in the history. Don't watch history. We want you in our team, and we need you, for we understand that the problem is bigger than us. We cannot fight by ourselves. So whatever it is that you can do, please join us. Make a donation, bid on an auction, share it with your network, bring your friends, your people in, so that all together we can reach our goal and we can make this happen. We want to be very transparent. We want to be very efficient in what we do. We want the world to know how this program is going to go, how much money we raise, how many kids we get, how we select those entrepreneurs, how those entrepreneurs progress. We want people to be able to follow, because this is history in the making. This is a real momentum happening for Black people in the US, in the UK, in South Africa, in Asia, in the Middle East. This is amazing what is happening. And we should all come together, because this is not something to watch from outside. We are extremely excited. And I just can't tell you, I've hosted a lot of in-person events with some of the top investors, celebrities, and head of state. But listen, this one is special because I am proud to be a Black person. I am more fortunate than a lot. That's why I am using my platform, because I believe that a lot of my peers are not allowed to talk about this and help advance the status quo. We need to defeat, we need to advance, we need to be in a position where Black people can have access to equal opportunities as everybody else. But we want to be clear. It's not about dividing. If we're going to divide the country and the world, we're never going to get there, because as business people and investors, we believe in the strategy. We believe in principles. There is no way you advance the agenda of Black communities if you keep saying that all white people are wrong. White people are our friends. We all have white friends, Asian friends, Arab friends. We are all human. Of course, in every race, you are going to find the negative, you're going to find the extreme. Let's stick with the people who believe in unity, who believe in love. Let's stick with the people who believe that if we all come together, it doesn't matter the color of your skin, you're going to make it. Our team has white people, we have African, we have Americans, we have Arab, we are a mix, and we get along very well. So we have done this Black Momentum program all together. And we want you to join us with the right spirit, the spirit of joining hands with all races, to help a very disadvantaged one that deserve to be on an equal stage and compete at the same level. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We are excited to have you here. And I want to thank you for taking the time. I know we are all busy, but really thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much.
How,
Hello, Jenny.
how are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Good.
Oh, great. Your house looks amazing.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me, and for everything that you do. Um,
Thank you, Jamie. Jamie, I want to ask you right off the bat. You've been at our previous event and you have generously supported us so far. And we so appreciate what you and your wife have been doing and backing us up. What did you think when I asked you whether you would want to speak?
um, at, at first, I was a little. I didn't think I would be the correct one to be speaking. And after speaking to my wife, we talked about it, and we're like, it is a difficult conversation to have. Obviously, being a white police officer that's an emergency service, profession that's been involved in community service and EMS and fire and police my whole life since I was 17 years old. And this being a very difficult time in our society where maybe some people don't support the police and they're talking about defunding the police and they don't support law and order or the institution of police departments. It obviously was I was very interested in it because I think it is a difficult conversation that needs to be had. And I look at things a little bit differently. My wife is also in law enforcement, and she's dark skinned, and we talk a lot about race and about raising children in this environment, and so forth. When we saw I remember clear as day. I was driving, and my wife was in the passenger seat, and it's when the George Floyd video came out, and I turned to my right and I looked at her, and she was watching the video, and she started crying, and I'm like, what happened? And she's like, you got to see this video. You got to see this video, and she started showing it to me. I couldn't even watch it. I mean, I was like everybody in the world, right? You look at it and you just out of anger, out of just disheartening that you see something like that happen. And I had to tell her, just stop. I can't watch it anymore. Just shut it off. And she, being a person that's darker skin, was like very concerned about it and just about the whole environment. We knew what was coming. You could see what was coming.
Absolutely. And Jamie, I want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with us. This means a lot. I want you to know that. Can you please tell the audience about yourself? It's so difficult for me to talk about you because your resume, it's like unbelievable.
I don't like to talk about myself, and I know I don't know that many people that do, unless you're a politician, really like to speak about yourself. But I started with community service when I was 16 years old. I joined an ambulance company, a volunteer ambulance company in my community, and I joined a youth squad where we learned EMS and medical training. And from there, I became one of the youngest police officers on my job. I got on at 20. I graduated the police academy at 21, the NYPD Police Academy. And then after that, I went to the Connecticut State Police Academy, where we became certified in Connecticut. And then about 2 years ago, I came down with an extremely rare cancer that was from my response down to the terrorist attacks down at the World Trade Center. It's a cancer that only happens to maybe 1 in every 1.5 million people in the world. I had to go through a very extensive surgery and chemo for about 10 months of chemo. And then I was in surgery and in the hospital for 2 months where I had to learn to walk again. And if you see me now and you see my photo that I sent you, I went from 190 pounds and very muscular down to about 95 pounds. In addition to that, I also am on the board, like I said, on the board of directors for an EMS agency, one of the youngest EMS chiefs. I became a detective with the MTA Police Department, where I investigated a lot of death investigations dealing with trains. So when people passed away by either being struck by a train or on our properties, I would be investigating that. So when I would show up at someone's house, it would be in some of the most difficult times that they face in their life. And I would be the one that they would remember for the rest of their life because I'm telling them about one of their loved ones passing away. And then from that, I was in patrol. I worked in Manhattan. I worked in Brooklyn. I worked in Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk County. And then I became a deputy fire coordinator recently with Suffolk County, where I helped them out during the COVID-19. I was on the think tank, which really is a group of people, it was about 10 people, and we addressed some major complex issues that occurred with public health. So example is, where does PPE go? Who do we give it to? How do we open up the county? How do we deal with emergency services if they go down because of COVID-19? And that's really, I mean, I have a very diverse background when it comes to emergency services.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. And let's dive right into it. You have served with Black, Asian, you name it, white colleagues. So you have a global perspective when it comes to these things. A lot of Black people out there today are outraged, really, at the police. A lot of them think that police, it's bad, that police officers have been killing African Americans, Black people for decades, and really nothing gets done. People just get a free walk. How do you assess this, being a police officer, but also looking at a social interest into making your community better?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to, just like everything in life, no one likes to be painted with the same brush. I could tell you that I've worked with many law enforcement agencies. I've worked personally with NYPD, with the state police, with Suffolk County Police, and worked with amazing police officers that have done so much good, both with community programs and as policing in general. And I think that you can't really paint the broad brush against all police, because, like I said, I was outraged when I saw that video. I mean, I was screaming at it, just get off of him, like, somebody stop it. I mean, and I think that goes beyond race. That's as a human, as you know, that you would stop and say, that's not right. Why is that going on? And if there is a police officer that does something wrong, you want them held accountable. Just like if someone attacked you as an African American, you would want them held accountable. Nobody likes to see anything like that happen to anybody. It's not humane. And I think it goes back to also his community interaction with the police. I was very fortunate that I worked a lot of homeless outreach. I worked with a lot of interagencies where we developed a lot of community programs, a lot of services that were, I'll give you some examples. I mean, we did swim lessons. We gave out, last summer, we gave out 100 scholarships to minorities to take swim lessons, because we identified that there was an uptick in drownings in minority communities. We did car seat inspections, where the sheriff's department worked with us and the ambulance company, and we did car seat inspections. And we actually ended up finding several of the car seats we either passed down and damaged, and we replaced them to stop children from getting hurt in car accidents. And it goes on and on and on to recently, about a year ago, me and my wife and Blue Lives Matter and NYPD, New York State Police, Port Authority Police, and the MTA Police brought a 7-year-old girl who had terminal cancer. Her name is Abigail Arias, and tomorrow's her birthday, and that's Abigail right there. She always wanted to be a police officer, because police officers are a positive role model in their communities, where she had very positive interactions with the police chief there and the police department there. And she always wanted to be a police officer, and they made her the honorary police chief for their town. And we brought her here to New York, and we let her experience something that she never would have ever had that experience. I mean, I will tell you that a New York State trooper, after we had her come to Grand Central Station, and New York State troopers and the MTA police and NYPD got together, and we had K9 there, we had ESU there, and we had her playing with the dog. And that's us at the World Trade Center. And a trooper came up to me and he says, and this is a big uniform trooper. And you got to remember too, police officers are people underneath those uniforms, and they have lives. And he said to us, and he said, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this, because I have a kid at home that has cancer. And it really hit home to him that we brought this girl, this child here with her family and the police chief, and that we showed love to her, and we showed her that the police department cares about everybody. Doesn't matter about your race or your religion or your background. And I think that's really important. that we show that police officers do a lot of really good things in the community. And I think sometimes it's overshadowed by bad things that happen. And it's unfortunate.
Jamie, a lot of Black people are feeling that a lot of money is being invested into the police and almost none into sustainable solutions that can help the Black community to be self-sufficient and not having to rely on food stamp or charity. There is a very strong push against funding the police right now across America. I'm curious to know, what do you think your Black former colleagues, like Black police officers who have to navigate between the job and their family because they're Black, what is their stance, for the one that you know of, about this whole situation?
So, like I said, when me and my wife saw that video, one of the first things we did when we got home was we called a lot of our friends that were African American and Black that we worked with. One of my partners that I worked with for a majority of my career is African American, and I was on the phone with him yesterday checking up on him because I know it's a difficult time, and not just for police, but for African American police officers. And I could tell you that we look at people, not as a color, not as a background, not as gay or lesbian or straight or Black or white. And I know it's difficult. When it comes to funding, you gotta understand something. When people call the police, they're calling us because they can't solve the problem themselves. And I find a lot of times when we go to calls that we end up becoming the psychologist, the social worker, we're the teacher, and we're the students. There are many times I learned from calls that I've been on. And me and my partner that is African American, we've arrested several, I would say hundreds of people. And they actually come back and thanked us because when they went to jail, they got services there that they wouldn't normally get. The services started from a 911 call. When we got there, we evaluate the situation. We deal with what's going on, and we try to be helpful, and we try to figure out, what does this person need? What services do they need? And if it is something criminal and they go to jail, I could tell you right now from speaking to my friend who are the sheriffs that they get a lot of services in jail. And now with bail reform, it's a little bit difficult because they're not getting those services anymore. They're getting let out of jail right away instead of going to jail where they would actually be getting help with their addiction, psychological help, because a lot of the money was brought into the jails to give those services and not necessarily and taken away from the community where they would, be able to go to a hospital and get that care. A lot of that money was given to the jails because they're identified as having a problem. So they're correcting it in the jail setting. So I know what you're saying, where you're saying the money's being taken, they want to take the money away from the police and give it to other services. I will tell you that when I did homeless outreach, a lot of times I worked hand in hand with a psychologist and social worker. So when we did interact with somebody, there was an expert there to help and to give advice. We were there more as a protection measure so that the psychologist doesn't get attacked, or so that they can do their job of helping people. And then in that, we learned from each other, and we worked on issues that were happening in society, actually in the field, with one-on-one with people, trying to help them. And it didn't matter about your race. It was white people that are homeless and African Americans that are homeless, and or with problems with drug addiction. Drug addiction right now is hitting every community. It's not white. It has it has blinders on. It's hitting everybody.
Jeremy, that's your experience, right? And this is who you are, which is not who a lot of police officers are. There are a lot of communities around the US and even overseas where Black people are scared to even walk on the street. Then when they're driving, they have to act a certain way when they get stopped. The relationship between the police and the communities have been like a constant problem and a constant debate in this country. Do you think that aligning the police efforts with an economic solution could help lead us towards an exit of this racial tension by balancing the efforts that the police is already doing now. If the police is receiving $1 billion and investing, let's say, 10 million into communities, can the police move a little bit more of that money towards pushing for, let's say, Black entrepreneurs who are going to go and impact their communities? That way, the police gets to work hands on hands with those corporate leaders who become the figures of their communities. And that's an idea that I just got like right now, as you were just talking, like there is defund the police. You have a lot of extremists on one side saying defund the police. And then you have a lot of officers saying don't defund the police at all. Is there a neat way here?
So I honestly think defunding the police or abolishing the police is not a realistic goal. I agree with you 100%. I think working together, I think you have to find a middle ground. You know, it's an interesting stat the other day that I read, and I thought it was really interesting that our DNA as human beings are 99.5% the same. So believe it or not, we are actually the same, 99.5%. There's a 0.5 that is different amongst all of us, whether it be race or ethnic background, from where our family comes from. And I think that's really interesting because I think we have to concentrate on how we are the same, and also celebrate why we are different. I think why we are different is inclusion, and you see that in a lot of police departments, particularly NYPD and New York police departments are majority minority members of the police department. And I think that's very, very important, same as it is in business. They bring something to the business. They bring their own personal experiences, their own view on things. And I think that's extremely important, that people that are out police the communities make up people from their community. And I could tell you that working with clergy, along with minority organizations, activists, is very, very important. Collaboration between both community and police, and that includes entrepreneurs. There are many, many things we're seeing now that if you partner with businesses, and yes, you are right, there are probably call types that maybe the police department doesn't necessarily have to respond to 100%. There are some of those types of calls where maybe working with a private organization or with social workers maybe can cut down on some of those call volumes, but there'll always be a need for a police response because when you pick up the phone and you call 911, you expect help, no matter where you are in the world. I mean, they used to put it on the police car, if you remember, call 911 for help. And when you pick up the phone, you expect a response of someone to come. What that response is now is they're saying, well, maybe we could divert some of those calls to social workers. And maybe some of those low-level calls we can. But I think the majority bulk of the calls, you will still need police. And where that comes into is we need to train police a lot more. We need to add a lot more money into training police, into bringing police together with our community, with our clergy. We need to form more community partnerships, both with businesses and other organizations. And you see right now, the Black Lives Matter movement right now, you see protests in the community. I've been at several of them, and they were very, very peaceful. And they brought the point across, and they are bringing the point across that we need to change the system. A positive change in life happens all the time. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But do I think defunding the police is a good thing? I don't. I back the police departments. I think they have a lot of really good programs and a lot of really good people. And the police officers that do bad things are really a small portion of the people that represent the police departments.
But what do you think?
They're very good people.
What do you think should happen to those bad ones? Because one of what really, really sparked this whole thing is that continuously and repetitively, the bad ones do bad stuff and nothing happens. And it appears that because this time, we are on the COVID, everybody's home, there is no business, the video was there, we all got to see it. Also, don't you think there should be more action taken against police officers who do the wrong thing, especially when it's not caught on camera? that it can be systemic, that I know that as a Black person, if something happened to me and it was the fault of a police officer, it doesn't matter that it's white or Asian, that something will be done about it without me having to protest and go on social media.
Yeah, I think social media, that's a whole other aspect of it, that social media has completely changed the way policing is and how the community reacts to policing and negative things in general. I mean, I was watching the other day, they had a show on about doctors that were evil doctors that switched babies at birth, that did horrific things, you know, and you look at it and you say, oh, okay, well, the medical profession has to change. And we're seeing a lot more now of things that are negative, that are, I shouldn't say negative. We are seeing a lot more on social media, and it's driving change, which is not a bad thing. And yes, you see now a lot of change where transparency is extremely important. And in the criminal justice system and in law enforcement, in courts, law enforcement, corrections, transparency is extremely important, that the community knows that when somebody does something wrong, that they're held accountable for that, and that their complaints are going to be held very seriously and investigated. And that's for anything that happens. I mean, what's good for one side has to be good for the other. But I will say, I was told from the minute I went into the police academy that you're held to a higher standard, that you have a firearm that can take somebody's life, that you have a badge, and you swear that you're going to uphold the Constitution, that you're going to protect people, that you're going to do the right thing, whether someone's watching or not. And that was before the internet really took off the way it was. So I always thought about that whenever I dealt with anybody, that use empathy, that you treat somebody the same way that I would want to be treated, that my wife, who's a dark-skinned female, should be treated. And that's how I've always acted, and that's how anyone I've ever worked with has acted in the performance of their duties. And it's very, very important that we continue that thought process, that training, that we continuously train police officers, that they have supervision, that we increase the supervision of police officers, so that when they are on one of those calls where it's kind of an iffy call, that there's someone there to tap them on the shoulder and say, take a break. And maybe there are some police officers out there that maybe shouldn't be police officers. And there's a supervisor that understands that, takes that police officer's side, has a conversation with them, evaluates how they operated on a call, and tries to figure out how to change that person's view or how they change their policing. And I think that's how you really get to the bottom of it, is really by funding more of their training, their supervision, and accountability. Those are the three biggest things that you'll see changing right now. And you see it right now in policing. I hear it on the police radio all the time. They're sending supervisors to almost every job now to make sure that everything is going appropriately, that everyone's treated fairly, that the police officers are doing the right thing. And body cameras are coming out left and right. You see that. I mean, the body cameras are coming out so that the community can see it, and transparency.
Jenny, on a social stance, on a personal stance, off the top of your head, how many Black friends would you say you have?
I like to think I'm in a different, I shouldn't say different. I would probably say half of my friends are minorities. I say Black because some of them are Caribbean, some of them are African American, some of them, a lot of them are Spanish. My wife particularly is Spanish, but she's very dark-skinned Spanish. So I have a lot of Spanish friends. I would say probably more than half, and I would say probably half of my half are police officers. So if that tells you.
Would you say that you were led into that direction also because you're married with someone who comes from a different background, so somehow organically you were already led towards something different, so you accepted diversity, and it makes your situation a little bit more easier versus just a white Americans married to a white Americans having lived in America 90% of their life, and not understanding the other side. Do you think your situation is a little bit more plausible, or do you think that regardless of the situation, we all should personally work towards getting to know the other side, understanding where they're coming from, and that's the only way we are actually going to come halfway? Because there's a lot of hypocrisy going around in corporate offices, in bars, in entertainment, where a lot of people collaborate but are actually distant. And it takes a situation like this to see camps start forming, a lot of lies thrown on media where people are thinking differently backstage, a lot of employee being kept out of the authorization to speak publicly. Do you think do you think the problem is deeper in the road where we have to do more on a personal level to push the boundaries and invite more diversity into our home and get to be more involved into what is the other's reality?
So I personally grew up in a majority white neighborhood. I went to a majority white school. I was, I would say, sheltered until I became a police officer. So when I became a police officer is when I became more inept and more conversations like we're having, these difficult conversations. When you're in a police car with somebody for 12 hours a day, they become like your second wife or your significant other, and having those difficult conversations with someone of another race needs to happen. And with that, you grow and you become a better person. And when you become a better person, you bring more to the table. And inclusive is very, very important in the police department, and it grows us all as human beings. And I will say, I grew up in Long Island, and to become a police officer and be exposed to that, to me, was life changing. I met my wife that way. I opened my mind up to new things I was never exposed to. And I think that had made me a better person, and it also made me a better police officer. And using empathy, like you said, remember that 99.5%, you have to kind of look at that 0.5% and say, okay, let me get past the borders. Let me get past the boundaries that we have in our mind. I remember telling you, one of my good friends is a very large African American. You look at him and you go, oh my God, this is a scary, scary man. And I'll tell you right now, you talk to him and he's the softest person, the most gentle person you ever meet in your entire life. And he's a police officer. And you look at him, and I was on many of calls with him where people were scared of us. You see a white bald guy and you see a large African American, and you go, oh my God, what's going to happen here? And then after talking to us for about 2 minutes, the narrative changed. It was like, okay, and like I said, there were many times when we arrested people and they come back and they thanked us for getting them help, for talking to them, to dealing with them. There was a train versus person where a child passed away. It was an African American child. And to this day, every anniversary, the mother sends me a text message. And remember, I'm retired now for over 2 years. The mother sends me a text message on the anniversary day and just thanks me for how I and my partner dealt with the situation, how we approached their family in a minority community and stuck by them through that horrific situation of losing a child that's African American due to being struck by a train, and how we showed compassion and empathy to the family, and how we continuously checked on them and went back and had conversations. You talk about difficult conversations. Try having a difficult conversation with someone that just lost a child because they don't believe what happened, or they don't believe in the system. They don't believe that what we're telling them is correct, is really what happened. So I could tell you that there is a mistrust between police and the community, and that has to be worked on. That trust has to really be worked on. And I'm not an expert in how to fix that, but I could tell you is bringing people together and being more inclusive and having diversity in the police department is a big step in the right direction. And I think using empathy and putting yourself in other people's shoes and try to take a step back and think about things and how they would feel is a huge step in the right direction.
Jamie, this is really emotional. Before I let you go, I want to ask you really quick. When you heard this group of Black people talking before about the things that they do in the business community, the investments, the struggle that they're having, what was going through your mind?
What was going through my mind was there was an article in Newsday the other day where they interviewed minority business owners, and they were explaining how the minority business owners were being treated like they were the help or the employees of the company and not the business owners of the company. And I thought that was very interesting, that they felt that in their business that they weren't being treated the same way as a white CEO of a company. And when you look at that in policing, you kind of equate that to being like a boss, an African-American boss being treated differently than a white supervisor of a police department or any business for that matter. Police department is a business, just like it is everywhere else. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, just like government is. And there's an expectation when you run a government, when you run business, that that there's a leadership role, and that you're going to bring something to the table, and you're going to make your business better, and you're going to make government better and policing better. And when I heard what your program has been going on, I think there needs to be more of an investment in inclusion. There needs to be more of an investment in minority businesses and partnerships. There needs to be really more investment in partnerships between the community, businesses, clergy, and the police department to really come up with a plan. And so we got to bring everyone to the table. That's the real important part. Everyone needs to sit down at the table and have that difficult conversation. I think that's where it's lacking. There's a lot of legislators, a lot of politicians right now that are acting real quickly to make things happen because of political reasons. And I think you really got to sit down, just like the police have to use empathy when they go on calls and they have to put themselves in other people's shoes. It has to be reverse as well. People have to put themselves in police officers' shoes. They're making split-second decisions that can ultimately change their livelihood and the livelihood of someone else's family. Every single 911 call, millions and millions of 911 calls every day, where could dramatically change multiple people's lives in a split second. And it's very, very important that we all understand that. We don't want to see people's lives lost. Whether you're African American, whether you're Spanish, whether you're Hindu, whether you're white, nobody wants to see that. No one wants to see anything happen like what happened to George Floyd, ever happen in this world. And we just got to come up and really sit at the table and come up with real solutions on how to fix this.
Jamie, I can't thank you enough. And there's nothing I have to say other than thank you so much. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a supporter. Thank you to your wife.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, for really promoting Black entrepreneurships and for bringing us all together and having these difficult conversations. I wish we had these more. I wish we had more difficult conversations. And I say they're difficult. This really wasn't that difficult, right? We sat here and we had a normal conversation, civilized, and I think that's the way it has to go.
Thank you very much, sir. We look forward to continue the conversation and taking steps towards how do we bring Black entrepreneurs to work with the police department and to see how the police could be more involved into probably supporting or helping and investing in some of those businesses that could drive the expansion of a community. That will be less of a problem on their plate, and that will bring together police and communities, because the communities are struggling, they're screaming, the police is saying we are not all bad, there are some perfect guys in here. So I think building a development structure between the two will definitely get us a step forward. Thank you so much, Jamie. And
now, if there's anything I can do to help bridge, to bring trust, I mean, I am always welcome. You're always more than welcome to give me a call, and you have my phone number. And if there's anything I can ever do to support you and Black entrepreneurships and businesses and our community leaders, please don't hesitate to ever reach out.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I am set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, his unending love, amazing grace. The Lord has promised good to me. His hope my sword secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. The earth shall soon dissolve like snow, the sun forbear to shine. But God who called me here below will be forever mine. My chains are gone, I am set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. Unending love, amazing grace.
The world will never be the same, and that is good. From the darkness rises a new hope. Eyes have been opened, voices have been heard. It's time for change. Protests, demonstrations, and cries for action have set the ball in motion. Now we must maintain and increase the momentum. Black momentum. At Bervin Foundation, we believe that the most effective way to bring about true change to underlying social maladies is by acknowledging and addressing underlying economic inequality. We know that the world needs a solid, tangible path forward. A bright future lies in the creation of employment opportunities, the improvement of living conditions, and the increased stability of families. The Black Momentum program by Bervin Foundation aims to empower Black entrepreneurs with promising business ideas and strong entrepreneurial spirit. This 90-day accelerator program will provide mentorship and coaching, foster invaluable relationships, and provide startup capital, equipping entrepreneurs with the tools and resources that they need to be successful, to create jobs in their communities, and make a positive social impact. Support Black Momentum and help put an end to racist wealth inequality in the US and around the world. Together we can make a brighter future. Donate, share, bid in the auction, and join us, Black Momentum, the economic response.
Hello, Tariq.
How's it going, Val?
No, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Tariq, before I let you start, I wanted to ask you, I always bring a lot of projects to you, right?
Right.
And we fight a lot over, oh, this is not good, this is this, this is that, this is this. And a lot of time you take a lot of time to even say, you think we should go for this. This Black Momentum thing, when I brought it to you, like right away within 5 seconds,
yeah,
you green lighted it.
Right.
What made you do that?
Yeah, if you remember, I told you that this project, when you started describing it to me, and I said, hey, wait a minute, this is something that kind of reminds me of an idea that I had, an idea that I had wanted to implement, even going back to like the time when I was still in law school. And I had thought about, and that shows you that these issues have been prevalent in the society for a long time. And, you know, we just tend to forget about them. And moments like this, people are reminded, there's a more stark reminder in front of your face. So it brings the attention back to it. But I recall I was in law school and I was trying to formulate a way on how do we address some of these issues that were prevalent. And so I had an idea that was similar to this. And so then, and it's been in the back burner for a while in my life. And then when you brought this up, I was saying like, hey, this is exactly what I already had in my mind. I already have most of it formulated. I already have the narrative formulated. So that's why we got on this pretty fast without much of the argument.
Thank you so much, Rick. I will let you start. We talked about Black Momentum, and the project was created just a few weeks ago, and then you got onto it. We'll bring Tim later on. I think what the audience would want to really understand here is what is really the Black Momentum Class 2021. We understand it's a pilot cohort which aims to create something that will be duplicated over the years to really support Black entrepreneurship. Can you kind of walk us through the where this is coming from, the why, the what is it?
Yes, I think that this is something, so we have to look at this historically. on the moment that we're here right now. So there's a moment that everybody can perceive. We turn on the news, we watch what's happening. There's people marching, there's protests, there's the understanding that even the statement Black Lives Matter already implies that there's something wrong, that Black lives somehow didn't matter, which is why it needs to be said. So right now this stuff is happening and it's in front of everybody's face. But we have to look at, how do we get here? How did this country get to this point historically? And everything that we do has to have a historical narrative to it that makes sense. And the reason why this project, I think, is very much needed and is going to be very successful, we hope, is because it fits. It addresses a historical issue that has gone long ignored. So right now, when we watching the protests. At the same time, what's happening is we're seeing a lot of divisiveness coming into this country. We're seeing a lot of issues where people are blaming other people and people are starting to fight and there's people trying to attempt to take over the narrative and make it into something violent or divisive. And this is where you'll find that the news media will point the camera. And the reason is because this is far more interesting of a story, people fighting. And so as that happens, people tend to believe that this is what's happening in reality. There's some sort of race war, but that's not the case, right? This is not an issue of black versus white or rich versus poor, man versus woman, straight versus LGBTQ. It's not that. That narrative is just a Twitter fodder and it's the news story, but that's not the reality. The reality is that most people, honest people, good people in this country want to work, want to earn their living, want to have an equal shot, and would address the issues when someone else in this country has been wronged, but there's just not there's not enough substantive story to go behind it. So this is what we're doing here. We're trying to address what's happening. In reality, African Americans in this country have gone through, there's not even words for what's happened in this country to African Americans. So there's been a historical wrong, a very deep historical wrong. And even after the times of slavery to now, it's created a massive racial wealth inequality. And wealth inequality creates a lot of other social issues and problems that exist. And obviously, we're addressing the issues of criminal justice reform, police brutality, things like that, and they all need to be addressed. But underlying all those issues, there's this issue of racial wealth inequality. And to understand where the racial wealth inequality comes from, we have to look at the history of it. After African Americans were freed as slaves, there was the notion that you can't just start with nothing and just go from there. That was understood. So there was the idea that there would be land that would be given in, at that time, a nascent United States, that the free slaves would have some land to work on, because without land, there's no real way of doing anything. And initially, some bits of land was given, not much. But as soon as Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, Andrew Johnson quickly reversed all those policies, and the land that was given was taken away again. So again, the opportunity to build wealth, to build a family wealth, was taken away. So we move forward in time to the 1906, where you have two black entrepreneurs who go in and acquire land in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And these entrepreneurs acquire this land with the intention of empowering other black entrepreneurs, and they do so. So from 1906 to 1921, you have a thriving community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was called the Black Wall Street. It was the Greenwood area of Tulsa. And this community is thriving. It's created a lot of wealth. It's empowered a lot of black people in that area, and it's by empowering entrepreneurs. That's basically what their strategy was, and they did that. And because of the ongoing segregation in the South, it actually forced the black community to continue to do business amongst each other, and that helped to keep the capital within the black community, and it empowered more entrepreneurs, and it created more wealth. I mean, it was a thriving area, and the fact that it was called Black Wall Street shows it was a thriving area. And this is where we see more of the historical wrongs start happening, because that community was destroyed, as we all know. And some of us don't know, actually. This is something that's not talked about much. In what's known as the Tulsa Race Massacre in 1921, that whole community was destroyed. There was riots, mostly pushed by the KKK, the police. Riots led to the destruction of Greenwood, and the capital and the wealth that was created from there was pretty much destroyed. When the dust settled, 191 businesses were destroyed. 191 businesses destroyed. So this is what happened. So at the time that African Americans did build something, it was destroyed. It was taken away. So again, the opportunity to have family wealth that's passed down was taken away. You go on to the 1930s. The New Deal program promised government-insured home loans, but they restricted those home loans for predominantly Black neighborhoods. So again, where white Americans were able to get the government-insured home loans and build wealth through property, Black people were excluded from that. And then we go on, post-World War II, you had the GI Bill, which promised home loans with no down payments for veterans. Again, those contracts were given to developers who excluded Black people from that. So again, Black people were unable to build wealth, family wealth, and at that time in America, the 40s, the 50s, was when real estate and real property was the opportunity to build wealth, because you were able to acquire it rather easily, and it appreciated in value significantly over the next few decades. And so now we come to where we are right now. The racial wealth gap is rather large. You have in America, the average white family has $171,000 of family wealth. The average Black family, $17,000. That's a 10-to-1 gap. And in some areas, that gap is even larger. The city of Boston, the average white family has a net worth of $247,000, and the average Black family has a net worth of, and I'm not kidding, $8. So you see that this gap is generally big across the country, and it's bigger in some parts than the other. And why I bring up the issue of family wealth is because a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of businesses get their start when they have friends and family around. A lot of them get it from like a loan from a family member or an investment from a family member. That initial $100,000, initial $150,000 to get the business going comes from family wealth. And so when the family wealth is lacking, and this is due to very specific and very specific policies, institutional policies that prevented Black people from building that wealth over the centuries, has caused Black entrepreneurs to be they're set back. They're not able to get started as easily as a white entrepreneur could be that has developed, has a family wealth that is able to finance that. So that's the issue, and that's why we're here. We're here in this moment because we're not trying to, address the issue of race as a whole. We're trying to address the issue that we see. And the thing that we do here at Bourbon Foundation is that we try to take real action items that are going to make a real impact. And how we address this issue is this entrepreneur fund. This entrepreneur fund takes the brightest of the minds of Black entrepreneurs, historically disadvantaged. And I've described the historic disadvantage here. We have to know what that term means when we say historically disadvantaged. The history is very important. So you have these historically disadvantaged Black entrepreneurs, and the ones that have a great entrepreneurial spirit, the ones who have bright ideas, great, a great company. We're here to provide that initial seed funding that would have come from family wealth, but now that family wealth is lacking. And so this fund provides that. And more importantly, this fund is not meant to just sort of be a capitalistic venture to make a profit. Rather, we're looking to empower the entrepreneurs themselves and empower their skills. So then if they go on to other businesses, they're also successful from what they learned here. And so that's what we're doing here.
This is quite impressive. I want to bring on Tariq in addition, Tim Varner. Tim is a serial entrepreneur, mainly a tech entrepreneur. He was at this 2014 batch of Y Combinator, which is like the #1 startup accelerator in the world based out of San Francisco. Tim has gone out to get acquired and create another company. He's been mentor and advisor of several accelerators and companies. He's just a bright mind, understanding how to manage entrepreneurs and young leaders. Tim, good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
For allowing some of your times to be with us. I want to ask you, Tim, you and I have known each other for a while, and we have a great relationship, and I have seen firsthand how you were able to mentor and assist entrepreneurs in a way that allows them to be successful, because you've been there, you have succeeded there, you are still doing that. when I reached out to you, what made you want to be part of this? I mean, you are a white guy, you are a white successful guy. Something is happening. A lot of black folks are complaining against the white folks and vice versa. And then I reached out to you about something like this. What made you want to be part of this?
Yeah, I guess there are two answers to that. The first is that just in piggybacking on what Tariq said, that there's been a historically disadvantaged community, and that that community has not had the access to capital or just opportunity to build businesses like some of the rest of the country, including myself as a white American. And so the opportunity to just help right that historic wrong is appealing. And I love the fact that the program that you're envisioning is one that is really it's largely a philanthropic effort. And so that appealed to me as well. But then there's just the question of opportunity from the other side, from the perspective of an investor or just people who care about building businesses or their community. And that opportunity is capitalizing on talent that is being ignored or isn't giving the same opportunities. And we've seen this theme of talent capitalization prominently in our society over the last decade. It needs to be more featured, but it is getting more attention than it has historically. So you've seen more opportunities, both VCs and other investors funding females or funding minorities. And then you're also seeing more minorities and women get opportunities running funds, sitting on the other side of the table and determining who gets the capital as well. And those are all positive steps. And so to be a part of both helping in some small way contribute to correcting a historic wrong, and then also helping enable and empower talent that has been undercapitalized for really the history of our country.
Tim, I want to thank you for working with us here, because I think one of the great things at Bervan we're proud of is we're very humble in the way we do things. We like to make sure that when we start something, that we bring in a group of people who can help us do it right and efficiently. So I'm very excited that you're part of this, that we can tap into your experience here to get it right, because I believe that you, alongside a lot of the folks we've talked to, on these panels before, would be able to deliver something amazing. Now, going back to the Bervan, the Black Momentum Program 2021, what is it going to be? What is it exactly? Tariq explained it. I think we understand where it's coming from and what impact it's supposed to make. Now, if we wanted to dive down into how specifically this thing is going to work, can you give us a little bit more insight on the things we've worked on?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the it'll function like, in some ways, like a conventional accelerator. There will be about a 3-month period where founders are selected. They are provided capital. They they set goals over that 3 months to meet major milestones with their business. And so in that sense, it's very much like a standard accelerator. One of the tricks, though, in these situations is for the program to provide the necessary support to help accelerate the companies, but also not to do so much that we get in their way. And it's sometimes the fault of those who are trying to help that they actually just become another obstacle themselves. And so we will be providing mentors, we'll be providing feedback, we'll help obviously get access to capital. But we don't want to over-program the program. We want people to be able to build the businesses that are their mission in life, and the businesses for which they have been planning and working towards prior to us showing up. And so in some ways, the program will look a lot like a conventional accelerator, except that we hope not to become an obstacle ourselves by over-programming it. So there will be opportunities for fireside chats, mentorship, coaching sessions. Whenever they're in problem solving, we can help lend our minds or networks to whatever issues they're facing. But at the same time, we want to give them the space just to build. They have, again, this is a group of people who have been historically disadvantaged, and they've had roadblocks in front of their path the whole time, and we don't want to become one of those ourselves.
Yeah, and then if I can bring Tariq back a little bit, the one question that I had, and this is a question for both of you. Uh, Originally, we talked about a program where 50 Black entrepreneurs were to be flown into New York City for 90 days. Considering a possible second wave of COVID-19, because we have a lot of US states that are already seeing increase of case. A lot of them are shutting down. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut have rallied together under a coalition to now ban a lot of Americans coming from other states. I have no idea how this thing is going to work. So looking at that, how do you guys think we are anticipating this program?
Yeah, I think that was a very real concern, and I think it would be almost irresponsible to just plan something that's in person and making people have to get on planes and things like that at this time where there's so much uncertainty. So this program, the way that we envision it, would be a fully virtual program, allowing the mentors to reach, the entrepreneurs, the members of the cohort, virtually, to have some kind of daily check-in. The fireside chats and the mentorship lessons that would all be done virtually. This also gives us the opportunity to bring in more speakers that are from around the world with a greater skill set to speak to the members of the cohort. Now we're less concerned about scheduling and things like that. We can have more people come in virtually and address them. So there's more opportunity for members of the cohort to pick the brains of entrepreneurs from all over the world. And I think that if the situation allows, there's going to be some sort of in-person event at some point if things get better.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, and that was a great answer, I would just simply add that by not having some of the operation expense associated with having an on-site program, we should be able to put more of the capital to work. In other words, give more of it away, and that's pretty critical too. It'll be a very lean program and really seek to put the capital into the hands of the entrepreneurs who have been denied it historically.
And now, how specifically do we manage an entrepreneur who is in Los Angeles or somewhere in London, South Africa, or in Missouri, Chicago? Because you're talking in some cases about a young entrepreneur who's 19 years old, who has this amazing app that can reach 5 million, and we want to take a chance on him. How realistically can we anticipate being efficient, and are we building onto something that has already been done and proven to be successful?
Yeah, Tariq, I'll let you answer in a second. The one thing I would just say there is that I hope that we're not managing them much at all. I hope that we're supporting. And I know that you didn't mean in your question that we would be micromanaging them, Val. But the idea here is these are people whom, again, have been managed or denied or mollycoddled in ways that have denied opportunity. And what we want to do is support and enable. And the notion is, or the assumption is that the talent is there, the opportunity is not. And so we want to just enable the opportunity more so. And in many ways, I think we won't be able to keep up with the entrepreneurs. If we do well, like we'll feel inadequate to the task because the people themselves are so awesome and they're doing such a good job of building their businesses independent of us.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the answer that I would give. I think that when we talk about the entrepreneurial spirit, we're talking about like a burning desire, as Napoleon Hill says, a burning desire. And I think the kinds of people that we're bringing here, the kind of entrepreneurs that are out there have that burning desire. And so they're more eager to get to their business and get to work. And like, we're just providing the support and enabling them.
Yeah. And another question is, how do we go about selecting those entrepreneurs? If I am an entrepreneur watching this video now or rewatching it later, a recap, and I wanted to be part of this and apply, I would want to know Black Momentum. How do you guys select people? Are there some kind of criteria that apply? Am I a good fit for this? Is it a waste of my time?
Tariq, you want to try that first?
Sure. Yeah, the criteria is we're looking for people who have that. I mean, first and foremost, we're trying to empower the entrepreneur. So we want to know who the people are. So we know who you are. Do you have that burning spirit? And then do you have the you have your vision of what your company is, and you kind of already had that formed, and you're ready to go. So we're looking for people that are in that sort of state. We're not looking for people who are thinking like, hey, do I want to be an entrepreneur or not? I mean, I don't think that's the kind of people we're are looking to bring into this program. You know, the idea is to bring someone like that and someone who can tell their story and kind of say, this is our vision. And then we come in to amplify that vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully agree with that, and I would say that there may be a couple of qualifiers not qualifiers, but notes that we should make the audience aware of. One of them is this will not be, accelerators are typically thought of as tech accelerators. These are not necessarily tech entrepreneurs. These can be coming from any sector. The other thing that I would say is it won't just be those of us who are on this call making these decisions. We're going to bring in other leadership at points to help guide this. And I should just say, we will be bringing in other Black leadership, right? So it isn't going to be, you know, it's not going to be this white guy making a decision of which Black people are, which Black entrepreneurs are worthy of capital. Again, in some ways, we're trying to put the structure together that enables the opportunity, but then be self-aware enough to get out of the way of the entrepreneurs or out of our own way. And so we do want to create a little bit of an ecosystem with Black Momentum that allows other successful Black entrepreneurs and people who are more in touch with the communities that some of these entrepreneurs will be coming from to have a voice and agency in determining the most worthy candidates.
Yeah. And then another question is, Tim, as an entrepreneur, I applied, I get approved, I attend the program. We are going to provide $150,000 capital to each of those companies. When do they get the money, and what do they have to do to qualify to get that money?
Yeah, so I think in many cases, again, we have to work out some details around sectors because this just isn't tech entrepreneurs. But they would be getting the lion's share or perhaps all of that money up front. So that they have the freedom and they're liberated to go build their businesses and meet whatever immediate needs they have. There may be ways in which we provide a secondary grant that is a little bit delayed for the companies that are very successful. We're still working through some of those details, but generally speaking, they should expect to receive all of the capital or the lion's share of the capital at the very start of the program.
Okay. And Tarek, what timeline are we working on with now?
Well, we're looking to open up the applications fairly soon, and that application process will go on into the fall, at which point we'll begin the interview process and reviewing the applications, announcing our cohort at the beginning of January 2021, and you know, beginning the program, we hope around March 2021, and ending. And this is interesting, as I mentioned, you know, as I mentioned before, that there's a historical relevance to what we're doing here, and the program would end May 31st, 2021. We would have our demo day on June 1st, 2021, which would actually mark the 100th year anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is very impressive. And Tarek, once the money has been invested, the foundation is a charity, a nonprofit charity that invests give $150,000 grant to the entrepreneurs. Is there any commercial agreement? Is the foundation trying to make money out of this, or is this money that is given and gifted to the entrepreneur? You can do whatever you want. What will be the agreement between the charity and the company, right, just for full transparency?
Sure. I think the seed funding that's given obviously is for to further the cause of the business, and obviously we're looking at business plans and we're looking at what their expenses are, you know, in the application process. So the seed funding is for them to implement. The foundation itself is not looking to take any sort of commercial profits from it, but rather the model that we've implemented is that the foundation would take an equity in the company, and then that equity would go towards funding future cohorts. So this will be the first cohort, and what you know, the ones that are successful out of this one that result in you know, financial gain on the equity the foundation holds, and that equity or the revenue that comes in from there we put forward towards the next cohort. So it becomes a paid forward system. So the first group can actually help finance the second and third group and so forth, and the project can actually grow much faster that way.
Yeah. And Tim, those companies comes in, they get the money, they build themselves to a point where they are investable, What happened next? I went to Berlin. I spent 90 days. Nice guys. I was maybe in New York. It was nice. I got my 150 grand. My company's going up. But now, where do I go? Do we just
so
back there on the market? What's happened after that?
The program will almost certainly feature a demo day at the end. We have not said a lot of details about it on this call, only because we're still thinking through how that looks in a COVID environment and what things will look like then. The 150,000 is not going to last very long, right? Again, this is a grant to provide an opportunity that's been historically denied, right? The companies will have to do well so that they can set themselves up for proper VC funding or institutional bank or something, some sort of funding that will allow them to go further. Obviously, to the extent that they can become profitable quickly and fund themselves, that's always great. But we know that with most companies, that is not an overnight story. That's a process of years, and you need that capital up front. So yeah, very much Bervan is providing them with an opportunity to get to that next stage, which will allow them to go get a larger funding round that would be more conventional, less of a philanthropic round that would lead to, you know, a Series A, B, C, and allow them to build their businesses.
And then, Tariq, on that note, Bervan being this huge investment platform, will those entrepreneurs be able to benefit and tap into the Bervan ecosystem going forward to access more capital from investors we're connected to?
Right. And that's what, you know, Bervan Capital has done over the last 2 years, that we've built that global investor ecosystem. And one of the perks for the cohort members of the Black Momentum program is that they have the chance to plug into Bervan Capital in the sense of as a lifetime, you know, for a lifetime. So as long as the entrepreneur, him or herself, is doing business, they can always tap into the Bervan Capital network, whether it's for the company that we're seed funding here in this round, or whether it's for a company they start up in the future. They're plugged into the Bervan Capital ecosystem for life, essentially.
Yeah. Tariq just said something that I think is really critical. Failure in startups and failure in entrepreneurship is not really failure, right? You trace the money. The second, third, fourth company that an entrepreneur starts may often be their most successful and the one where they really make an impact on the world. And in some ways, the lack of funding historically going to Black entrepreneurs has not allowed that second, third, fourth wave effect of the entrepreneur learning how to build and run a business through failure. Now, I think failure can be romanticized to where we give it too much credit, but the point is, like, the capital will have a positive impact on whether or not the companies are successful if we're directing it towards the right entrepreneurs, because they will have that next idea or that next business that is successful 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah, and before I let you go, very quick in 30 seconds, I want to know, when you heard this panel with Kike, Chanel, Gary, and Erica, what did you guys think? What was going through your mind when you were hearing these Black, successful, driven entrepreneurs and investors chat?
For me personally, I think that those stories are amazing, but they also represent how much talent is not being capitalized.
Yeah.
Right? It's representative of missed opportunity as much as it is one opportunity, and that's really the crazy thing about the way that investment capital has tended to go towards very tight demographics, is that it's really just ignoring opportunity for returns elsewhere, because it's simply not the pipeline, so to speak, isn't diverse enough to really represent all the available opportunity in the ecosystem. And so for me, it's bittersweet to hear stories like that or testimonies really about that, because it simultaneously represents a success and a lot of denied opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah. And I would add to that, this is something that, like I said, this is not a Black or a white issue, rather it's an issue of the human race and us, because we benefit from what the entrepreneurs bring, and the human civilization grows because entrepreneurs brought something. And so in that panel, obviously we see that there's the talent that is out there, And the missed opportunity there is not just that, this particular person wasn't funded, their company didn't get a chance to get off the ground, but as a civilization, we missed out on what innovation they could have brought, what new thing that could have transformed, our lives. So I think that if we want to maximize the human experience, we have to go out there and empower all those people and all the ideas to see if we can get the better ones, the better ideas to be established.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tariq. Thank you so much, Tim. This is a great honor. It's amazing to see that this Black momentum is not just talking, that there are actual thought, actual strategy that have been put behind it. And that's something that will really change the way things are done. Tim, I can't thank you enough, man, for coming on. I appreciate it.
You're always nice. It's my privilege to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Hello.
Hi.
Good to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really honored to be here again. As he said, I was in the Andrea Bocelli Charity Gala, and again, you guys are doing an amazing job. And as a citizen of America, and also, as a young adult, I feel like this especially affects my generation, and we're taking it really seriously, which gives me a lot of hope. And as an artist, I feel like there is a level of social responsibility we have to have. So I'm glad I can be a part of this and to kind of, spread the message. And this is a song I wrote for Black Lives Matter. This one is called I Can't Breathe. I did just recently a global collaboration where I had musicians from around the world collaborate and make one big video to this song. So if you'd like to hear that, it's on all my social media at Isha Music. And I really hope it can give some sense of unity in this time. I'm 19. I don't wanna die young, 23. Last words were to my mom on a jog in a car, backyard of my own home. 22. It's not real, it can't be. 43. I didn't even do nothing. Send my love to family. Turns out freedom isn't free for everyone. But how do I speak when I can't breathe? I can't. How do I stand when I can't breathe? I can't. All my life I had to lose just a name in the news. What about me? I can't breathe, I can't breathe. When I die, no, it's never black and white. We want change, but our throats are running dry. Seems so very ordinary. Write me off another story. How do I speak when I can't breathe? I can't. How do I stand when I can't breathe? I can't. All my life I had to lose just a name in the news. But what about me? I can't breathe, I can't breathe. My skin is black, my blood is red, my streets death row. My skin is black, my blood is red, my streets death row. Why don't you speak? When I can't breathe, I can't. How do you sleep? When I can't breathe, I can't. All my life I had to lose just a name in the news. But what about me? How do I speak when I can't breathe? I can't. How do I stand
Hello, Kike. Hello, Gary.
Hey,
Hi.
Hi.
It's very good to have you. So, Gary, let's start with you. I know we have three ladies here, but I'm going to give you the honor. Ladies is not a man thing. It's like he's next to me on the screen anyway. Gary, it was a fabulous discussion that you and I had. It was so organic. There was really nothing forced. We felt like we were seeing things the same way and we needed to do something. And as I told you at Bervan, we're not about talking. Right away, I got you and I say, Gary, let's do this. First, let's start by this. And you put together this group. And can you talk a little bit, like give a brief introduction to the audience about what is it that you've done? What is it you're doing?
Yeah, no. So, I mean, you can tell by the accent that I'm American, but I live in the UK now. Been an entrepreneur in the past. I guess my background is Yale College, Yale Law School, lawyer for a couple of years, and raised some money, had a startup, sold a startup, and then ran Wyra for the last, I guess, like 8 years, which was a corporate accelerator. We invested up to $150,000 in the end, we invested in about 185 companies in the UK. And those companies raised about $270 million and were worth more than $1 billion by the time that I left. But the thing that I saw all the time was that usually, if you're Black, you're the only person in the room. And when other investors had to look at Black founders, they would always find a reason to kind of not think that the founders were good enough. There was always something that they couldn't quite put their finger on. And so that led me to create The Nest, which is essentially masterclass for those people that know it, but focusing on founders and focusing on diverse founders. And it's all about kind of allowing everyone anywhere to access the best in educational opportunity directly from their mobile phone. We have people like Stacey Abrams, who's already kind of given a chat. We have the guys from Harlem Capital that are going to give a chat in a few weeks. And then that's what we're trying to do, to kind of change the face of entrepreneurship and let people know that you can be Black and an entrepreneur. You don't have to just be kind of the traditional Silicon Valley, Mark Zuckerberg phenotype.
That's impressive. And Chanel, just to cap into what Gary just said, your company is actually addressing what he's talking about. Can you tell us a little bit about with Cornerstone? What do you guys do? What is Angel Investment Syndicate? Can you walk us through?
Yeah, sure. More than happy to. Hi, everyone. So Cornerstone Partners mainly started because, as Gary mentioned, there was a gap in the market. You know, we have all this phenomenal Black talent, we have all these wonderful Black businesses, but, you know, in the investment landscape, there was an issue. There was some hesitation around, you know, predominantly these white-led investment firms investing in Black founders. So for us, we saw an opportunity and we saw a gap. We consider it to be a missed opportunity. So we set up an angel investment firm here in the UK to invest in Black and diverse founders of businesses in the UK. Because we thought, you know, if our people are struggling, let's try and do it for ourselves. So just to kind of give you an overview of what an angel syndicate is, it's a collective of of high net worth individuals. And so all of us at Cornerstone Partners, it's a collective of 20 partners. We have worked for at least 15 years, between 10 to 15 years, and acquired a certain amount of capital, and now feel like this is the time for us to kind of reinvest and pump our money back into, you know, our own people. So that's kind of the basics of why Cornerstone started and what an angel syndicate is.
That's wonderful. And Kike, why waking up and why putting yourself into this whole, I'm going to get all the Black people together, I'm going to be this Rolodex epicenter where Black people can come on and find solutions and collaborate together. Can you walk us through what led to that and what is it exactly, the BYP network? And congratulations for the name, by the way. It's very easy to catch.
It's very straight to the point, right? Black Young Professionals Network, just so people know what they're getting. Yeah, I mean, it started at the end of 2016 at the back of Black Lives Matter movement. Also, during that time, I had just come back from studying in America. And when I was working, there wasn't much diversity, as well as kind of the banks I had worked in the past. Again, I didn't see many people that looked like me. And my own background as well. I mean, I grew up in East London, single parent household. My elder brother went to prison when I was younger. So for me, it was just like there's so much happening in the Black community. And when you look at the statistics, it's really like it's traumatic and frustrating. And I just felt like, what is the solution? Not just in terms of police brutality. I'm talking the diversity within companies. I'm talking about role model visibility. And I just felt like maybe there's a lot of people around the world that think the same, that maybe that is the first solution. Let's find each other. Let's be on a platform. Let's share opportunities, ideas, start new businesses, refer people into the organization so that we can have more senior leaders. So it was basically like, how do we mobilize our community to just come together and solve our own problems? It's okay me thinking of an idea and me trying to just do something, but I actually realized that doesn't it make more sense to find people just like yourself who have ideas, who have connections, and then we as a community can come together. So in that kind of time, we've grown the network to, as you said, over 40,000 members. We work with the likes of like Facebook, Netflix, Airbnb, a lot of the top companies to plug the talent in terms of hiring, culture, internal like inclusive culture, as well as brand awareness. I mean, a lot of these companies, to me, I feel like we as a community have to decide if we're going to use or work with a company, right? Like if their D&I is not good, if they're not representing the community, if they do things such as when H&M had that T-shirt, I feel like we should be strong enough as a company to just stick, as a community to stick together. And for me, BYP Network is that power of a community where we can put the money within ourselves, we can share ideas, and then we can essentially grow. So yeah, it was an idea back then, and it's grown a lot, and there's so much more potential.
That's really wonderful. And Erica,
hi.
It's very good to see you. Erica, I wanted to walk us through your entrepreneurial journey. I know you had a series of entrepreneurial experience, and I also know that you have some strong views about what is happening now. Yes, you're laughing because I watch you and I research you, and so I know stuff. So I want us to walk us through. I want you to walk us through what is happening now. What has happened to you through the entrepreneurial journey? At what point are you now? And how do you see us, entrepreneurs, moving forward?
So first of all, thank you, Gary, for organising this, and thank you for putting it on. It's a fantastic event, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here this afternoon with you. So a bit about my journey. I started a company back in 2012, a company that Gary knows well. I was one of the first companies to be accelerated by Wira. So when Gary joined Wira, I was there. I started that company from my kitchen table and was able to successfully have the platform that we developed preloaded onto initially 2 million devices, but by the end of it, 15 million devices. And even at that stage, with having that breadth of reach, etc., I still wasn't able to raise venture capital for my startup. We raised £280,000 of capital, but beyond that, where there was no protection or no risk management with tax efficiencies, people weren't willing to go. And that left me feeling incredibly frustrated. And I thought that it was me. I thought that it was something that I was doing wrong. And so I went and enrolled in an MBA in the US equivalent of Yale. So we have the Russell, not Yale, of Ivy League. We have the Russell Group over here. So I went to a Russell Group university and I got myself an MBA. And off the back of that, I decided that I was going to start another venture. And I went back out into the market and I started having conversations with investors again. And I started to realize that not only had nothing changed in the last 8 years since I'd bootstrapped Charisma Kids, there were also more young Black women in particular having exactly the same experiences as me. And that left me feeling quite disillusioned with the current status quo. And so what I did was around about this time last year, I corralled a group of people together. There were about 9 of us, many of us entrepreneurs who have been down the journey, some successfully exited, some not, many who have learned from their mistakes, some investment bankers and a group of researchers. And together we formed Extend Ventures. And we started to look at how we could funnel more money into the ecosystem. But we also looked at how we might be able to connect the dots. So there are lots of different things happening. You've got Gary, who's formed the Nest, and is saying, actually, we need to make sure that we equip all of our people with the skills that we need. And then you've got Kiki, who has the BYP network, and that's mobilizing the people that we are going to need to shop from those businesses, for instance. And then you've got Cornerstone, who are angel investing. And then we have another group called Impact X, who are doing some Series A investments. But actually, what happens after that? Because if people need to raise money after that point, we would then be sending them back out into a toxic market. And we would be almost actively encouraging those businesses to fail when they can't raise beyond what we're able to supply. So we started to look at how we might be able to unlock more capital from the perspective of, this isn't a charity. This shouldn't be a charitable giving or seen as philanthropic. This should be seen as, actually, we want to invest in these entrepreneurs because we know that they're going to provide us a return on our investment. I want the rest of the world to see Black people as I see Black people. I see Black people as resilient. I see us as having grit. I see us as being able to make $1 out of 15 cents when push comes to shove. And I think that those are the skills that will mean that actually the more money that's poured into our businesses, the more money we're going to return for investors. And if we're able to create those returns, that's going to be good for our economies and our communities, as well as the entrepreneurs themselves. So Extend Ventures is seeking to do some research, and we are looking specifically at the returns that Black founders are able to provide to their investors in the UK, so that people can start to see us as an opportunity rather than as a charity.
Gary, if I may come back to you, you have been on the other side of the table. There's some of my white friends and colleagues have said, Val, we are 100% into this, but we also have to be realistic here. I have a honest question for you. Are Black founders, Black-led companies competing at least on a potential level when they present an idea? Are they comparable, or is it more 70-30? Do we, as Black founders, entrepreneurs, make the job of white investors easier by allowing them to go on investment committee and say, listen, we're trying to help, but you yourself look at the difference here? What have you seen over the last year or so, decades plus, that you've been able to invest in multiracial companies?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, we have to start with the premise that talent is distributed evenly and opportunity is not. What I would say is, and this is what we're trying to do at the Nest, is that sometimes people have certain advantages in the sense that they know the language and the lingo of entrepreneurship and venture capital, and they're able to speak to investors in a language that where they sound like natives. And sometimes it is true that groups that are underrepresented for different reasons kind of come into it, and they may not know all of the terminology, or they may not kind of just speak with the same degree of fluency. That, however, doesn't mean that the ideas are any worse, or that the ideas that come from white founders are any better. When you look at kind of the returns for venture capital, you realize that the vast majority of venture capitalists get it wrong the majority of the times. 85% of venture capitalists will never return a 3x investment, which is kind of what they usually are promising their limited partners, that they're going to be able to give them back within 7 to 10 years. So it's not like these class of venture capitalists have this unique or even proven ability to be able to identify talent. Starting from that presumption, then, what we see is that usually what they do is they kind of just limit their searches to people within their networks. They limit their searches to people who go to the same school as them. So in the US, for example, you would see that 40% of all the venture capitalists went to Harvard or Stanford, which then means that Harvard and Stanford students tend to be seen as better candidates, not necessarily because they're smarter than people who went to, I don't know, Princeton or Yale or even kind of, community college. It's simply that people go with what they know, and they tend to think that that's lower risk. So hopefully that answers your question, which is that yes, there is some upskilling in terms of just speaking the same lingo and the same language as venture capitalists. Then there's some of the unwritten rules in terms of like how exactly you need to make a middle-aged white man typically feel comfortable when you're pitching without having him rely on some unconscious biases where he might see you as more aggressive because you're speaking a certain tone. So there's those sorts of hacks that you need to do when you're a Black entrepreneur. But in terms of the quality of the ideas, as Erica is saying, there's no reason that a Black entrepreneur would have a worse idea than a white entrepreneur. Sometimes it's just about the dressing and the fact that the person on the other side of the table, one, might not give you the shot because you don't belong to their network, and two, even if you do get the shot, there's going to be something about you that they kind of can't put their finger on, but makes them feel uncomfortable, and they usually go with people that make them feel comfortable.
Well, Chanel, hearing what Gary is saying, that really makes me cry, because I review a lot of business plans every day. People call me or email me every day, and I got to be the one to confess. If it's not polished, I don't even look at it. I don't even open it, just because I get 500 emails every 30 seconds. So my first responsibility is to the investors of the company. Those guys, they don't play around. You know them. You have to give them accounts. So if you're not polished enough, if you don't fight to be on my top 10, I'm not going to rate you. So question to you, as your company invests specifically into Black founders, have you anticipated, integrated those difficulties, and how are you guys addressing this? How are you shaping those companies so that they can be investable and so that they can be comparable to these blue class companies that we're looking at? How do you fight to be on the same stage, quote unquote?
Great question. So to start off answering your question, the answer is yes. We do come across a number of companies that send for an email asking for investment, don't even know what a pitch deck is, let alone, how to go about pulling one together. And, as you mentioned, Val, you do, this is what you do, this is your job. You see, hundreds of pitch decks, almost daily. And so, you need to be quite tough when you are culling through them and trying to pick, the best ones to take forward. So if something doesn't look good, quite naturally, you're just going to, skip past it. So how do we help? So there have been a few instances where we have come across some great business ideas, but, it's been sent in, a letter. It's been typed up in a Word document. It's not pulled together in a beautiful pitch deck form, which is kind of what investors are used to seeing. And in those cases, what we tend to do is set up a session with them and give them some guidance around, how to pull a strong pitch deck together, and give them some coaching so that they do this. Now, there are a number of organizations that do focus on helping underrepresented founders to kind of make sure that they are investment ready to a certain extent. At Cornerstone, we don't do much of that, if I'm being completely honest. It's more of a one-off case. But what we do tend to say is actually, we're very honest with our feedback. And we see that, we have a duty to kind of educate our community. And when I say our community, I mean Black founders and businesses, to educate them about the investment process and actually what it means. Because what you tend to find is, when you meet a lot of these founders, they have imposter syndrome. They feel like they are almost unworthy. They want the investment, but, they're kind of second guessing themselves as they're talking to you. And they're very different to their white counterparts, no fault of their own, and credit to them. Some of their white counterparts have grown up, daddy's worked at Goldman's their whole life. And so they have this, chip on their shoulder, and they have this, self-belief, and that allows them to kick down doors and say, look, hey, I'm great, and as Gary mentioned, they use the right terminology and the right language. And so that easily resonates with the investor on the other side of the table, whereas a lot of people in our community don't. So I guess you have to assess with a certain level of empathy, which is what we do try to do. And where we do not have the bandwidth to support businesses that maybe aren't as polished and investment pitch decks that aren't as polished, we do refer them to other players in our ecosystem. And in the UK, there are quite a few of them, likes of YS, Foundivine, etc. There's quite a few organizations that specialize in doing just this. But I think a lot of it comes down to, imposter syndrome, maybe thinking that they are not as good or as worthy, and also terminology. So I think this is why, businesses like the Nest that Gary has launched will be fantastic, because it will educate underrepresented founders, with the information and education and terminology and also inspiration that they need to walk into the room as the same as their white peer that feels like they're unstoppable because they've been told that their whole life.
Absolutely. And Kike, your job, Kike, now becomes one of the most important one in the fight, because the honesty is there. As investors, we have to go for the best opportunities that makes our investors happy. So even if we would like to help, we have to do it the right way, because there is no black dollar or white dollar. There is the company dollar. So you have managed to build this amazing platform with 40,000 people. You can easily, instantly reach Black people. So you have a channel and a path to communicate to those people what is it they can do in order to get to that point. So first of all, congratulations, because it's amazing and brilliant what you've been able to accomplish. Now, how are you utilizing that platform to do what Gary, Chanel, Erika are complaining about? How can it be done in a better way? How can you be supported so that you can go from 40,000 to 4 million by the end of 2020? Because as much as we would like to help, I tell that to all of my colleagues and portfolios entrepreneurs, you have to play by the rules. Nobody's going to tender you a check, even if they love you, if what you do, it's not right. So you have to equip yourself. You have to have the right partners, the right strategy. On this panel, we have a guy who has invested in nearly 200 companies. We have a lady who is investing specifically into Black-led founder companies or Black founders. We have another lady who has created a company herself, made it successful, and failed because she just couldn't get over the hump. These are the collective. And then we have you, who has this tremendous access to go out there and say, people, listen, this is what they're saying. This is the opportunities that you have. But you got to do the work if you got to get there, because you're not going to get there if you don't do it. And you have to know that you have to work 10 times more than your counterparts. How do we rely on you? How do we help you expand? What could be ways in which BYP and other organizations like yours in the US, in Africa, in Europe can help this becomes a real global movement that help entrepreneurs get polished? Because if they're not polished, they don't even get a chance to pitch me. And I'm a Black person. How will they get a chance to pitch my friend Jason, Gary, Albert? They're not going to pick up the phone, because they're like, if Val didn't talk to you, like, come on, dude, I want to help. I'm going to go on Instagram and say Black Lives Matters, everything is well, and I'm going to get 500 likes, and people will know I cherish for the Black people. I know there's a lot of questions. I'm sorry.
I think if I just walk through, I guess, my mindset on everything, with entrepreneurship, with fundraising, with kind of just the climate in general. I know it's an elitist climate, right? Like, when I think about where we are today as BYP Network, I myself had my own privilege. I mean, I was an international javelin thrower growing up. I was an A-star student. I did an economics degree at Nottingham University. I got full track and field scholarship to University of Florida. I worked in investment banks. Like, I was already an elite person, as so says kind of the UK. I was one of the top 5 Black students in the UK. For me, it was like you had to be something already super good, superstar, to even get access. And that's what frustrates me. That's why actually I started BYP, because it was like, why must we as a community have to be 10 times better, or, you know, have to be seen as rarer than rare to get an opportunity? BYP has done well, but in the grand scheme of entrepreneurship, this should be the standard as far as I'm concerned, a minimum for our community. It shouldn't be rare to see a Black woman kind of raising money, or, you know, growing a community, or just, you know, doing well with her business or getting access. But again, everything, it seems we have to be so much better just to get that opportunity. And I just feel like BYP is my solution, or the solution of like, let's bring everyone together and give them the knowledge that they need. Give them the opportunities that they need. A lot of time, people just don't have access to the information, or like Gary said, the opportunities to actually be the best version of themselves. On my journey, it's been a curve, right? When I started it in my room. It was a side hustle for a good 2 years whilst I was working. And then I won some pitch competitions. That's at that moment, after 2 years, I found out about, oh, I can raise money for my business. Before that, I was just going to bootstrap it, because what do I know? So it took then another 6 months of learning about, oh, investments, starting your pitch deck, speaking to investors, getting some knowledge about that, and building a network. And then even when I raised my first round, I couldn't find any Black investors. Couldn't find them anywhere. I pitched a few, but you know, at the time I was like, oh no, I'm not sure, because a lot of Black investors actually were quite scared to put their money in. Maybe because either maybe it's not as much, or just because they need to really, really see that big return. I don't know what it was. But my initial investors were white. And that's fine, because they're amazing people. But I've always wanted Black money too. And so here we are right now doing a crowdfund. And I'm doing a crowdfund because I'm like, my community needs to be invested in BYP Network, because we will be successful even more than we are right now. And we will be a huge company that changes the Black narrative. That's what we're here for. So we need Black people to be invested in that. So how everyone can help is just by helping the community, whatever you can offer them. I mean, our crowdfunding campaign is with Cedars. Cedars waived all fees for us. They've never waived fees for anybody else. And at the back of that, we've built a partnership where we're going to be helping other entrepreneurs do crowdfunding campaigns too. Next week, in BBC and the Times, well, hopefully the Times, I've written pieces about venture capitalism being elitist and not giving money to Black founders. And my solution is like, okay, we'll work with Cedars and we'll start doing more crowdfunding campaigns for Black entrepreneurs. Just like how this is absolutely amazing what you're doing, because that's what we need. We need the money, we need the investment, we need the opportunity, and we need people to believe in us. If we don't have that, then what do we have? A lot of people in our community don't know about this world. They don't understand that actually to get from where you are right now as a business to the next level, you do need that level of mentorship, investment, networks as well. But we don't have that. So for me, I'm just seeing it as just do the best that I can with this business, get everybody else connected, get them opportunities, keep growing, and then I think the narrative will change. When we become more collaborative, when we understand what it takes to get to that next level without us having to feel like imposters, because we're not. We are absolutely incredible, but we have to be in spaces that people don't look like us and we're undermined and we feel like we don't belong or don't deserve, and that's not true. I mean, when I started my entrepreneurship journey, it took me looking at the founder of the startup that I was working at and thinking, wow, our background looks the exact same. You did economics, I did economics. You did a management degree, I did a management degree. But you weren't an athlete. So why can't I build this? And that's the kind of mindset we should have. We don't have enough role models. It's the truth. But maybe we look at other people that don't look like us and think, how do they compare to us? Well, what makes them better? I can do the same. So, you know, it's just about us coming together, collaborating, and understanding that actually it is about us as a community doing well. I disagree with the view that, oh, I'm fine, I'm doing well, my family's good, I've got millions of pounds, we're all good. We move on to the right. If people are still dying from police brutality, from knife crime, we're getting the lowest attainments. On average, we're the poorest in the communities that we're in. I mean, the UK stat came out the other day. Black communities have about 20 grand to their name, whilst white families have about 230 grand. But we need to start looking at things as collaborative, not just you as an individual. Because if you do that, you might be okay, but still people will walk the street and not know that you're a multimillionaire. They'll just see you as a Black person. And this is the thing, it's about changing the narrative. When people look at us, they should be like, wow, that's a Black person, they're amazing, I already know that. Like, it should just be standard because we know it's the truth. So yeah, it's just about, again, being more collaborative, coming together. I see BYP as like a network within networks. We've got loads of different groups. And we recently bought UK Black-owned business. So all those entrepreneurs, they'll come into our network. And again, like I said, we really want to help develop them with Cedars and things like that. But yeah, working with everybody. I mean, Gary, like we put him in the newsletter, we're saying download the app. We don't, it's a network to be mobilized. So any opportunities or whatever, send it our way. We'll put it to the network. We don't care. We want them to be the best version of themselves.
This is amazing, Kike. This is really wonderful. And really, I want to thank you guys, Gary, Erika, Chanel, Kike. This is amazing. And to end the panel with really this point of the Black solidarity, I talked to a lot of Black athletes, celebrities, investors, and that was one of the points. Help yourself before other people helps you. A lot of Black athletes, like prominent Black figures, are doing phenomenal things to advance the cause, but they are doing this individually. You will hear that LeBron James has this company there. Kevin Durant is this thing there. Steph Curry is doing this thing there. Michael Jordan is doing it. Everybody is doing things separately, but you don't have those prominent company that you can say LeBron, KD, Anthony Davis. You will think a team, but you don't have companies like that. I think if multiple companies were to come together like that, that also will be a boom in the industry, because a lot of those guys in the NFL, MLB, and the NBA, they're making hundreds of millions of dollars career-wise. They're very credible. They can get a loan whenever they wanted to, and a lot of investors would be willing to invest in them. So if they were to come together and each put like $1 to $5 million, they could raise $500 million to $1 billion. LeBron James raised $100 million to 48 hours ago. So I think this, to Kike's point, more collaborative strategy could also be something that could fast track African Americans or Africans from Europe or from Africa or from anywhere around the world to get a better exposure, because that way you get to invest your money into something you know, because you know the struggle, you understand it, and you bet on people who actually are willing to do the work. I just want to make sure we don't end the panel like a lot of protests. I like what I call claim with a request. When we complain about something, we need to act something. I came up with an idea, and I want, with just a very quick 1 minute so we close, I want to hear the four of you say something about it. What do you think about the idea, beyond the Black Momentum charity program that we're having, on a long-term basis? Can we work onto a campaign that requires investors to make a commitment to allocate capital to Black managers, VCPE, and Black entrepreneurs? What do you think about that idea for a lot of people who are saying, you guys are doing the charity thing, I'm going to give you $500,000 or $1 million. That's fine. This is Black Momentum charity. Now, on the investment side, as Erika was saying, besides charity, a lot of Black founders and managers out there are actually capable of generating and delivering high returns. What do you think of the idea of going aggressively, using all of those infrastructure we talked about, and creating a regional campaign that allows institutional investors, private investors, high net worth, Black and white, to put some of their money towards that, but at least to make a commitment for the next 10 years. Let's say we go $1 billion committed over the next 10 to 20 years, and it's regional. And through Kike Network, Gary's app, we find ways to organize it with different Black organizations from the US, from Europe, from Canada, from Africa, so that it can be flawless. That way, you put a lot of pressure on investors, and they are the one who will have to react, because the machine will be running. And if we're fortunate enough to bring those Black celebrities on board, because what they told me is like that, we're willing. This is the auction. What do you need? We're going to sign this. We're going to whatever. So they're willing, but they are scared, because they have this question. Are those Black founders ready? Are they polished? When I present it to my business financial manager, is he going to say, oh, Steph, maybe you shouldn't look at this? So just very quick, as we're running out of time, I just want to hear your very quick talk on this.
So,
should I first?
yeah.
I was just going to say that while we may not be polished, and while I may be quoting from Martin Luther King a little bit here, in the same way that he said that he wants to be judged by the content of his character rather than the color of his skin, I think Black businesses need to be judged on their metrics rather than how polished their pitch decks are. And if they're performing well and they are delivering returns, we need to be backing them. And I, for one, welcome this idea. I think that if we had 500 million poured into Black companies in the UK, we have enough companies to be able to absorb that money. We don't have a pipeline issue. We aren't under-educated, we're under-resourced. And so if we can get some of that resource down into the market, we will be able to provide the returns. And that is evidenced, and it will continue to be evidenced as our reports come out. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and the only thing I was going to add is that Elizabeth Warren, when she was running, was suggesting that the U.S. government should put a $7 billion, create a $7 billion fund only for underrepresented founders. So I think in the U.S., that's already on the table. In the UK, as Erica said, there are a bunch of us that are trying to figure out how we can advocate for the British government to put maybe, 500 million, which isn't really a lot of money from a government's point of view, or to have a fund that was supporting Black founders. But the last thing I want to say, though, is that even most pitch decks, and I've reviewed like thousands of them, most of them suck. Black, white, Asian, whatever. So I don't want us to kind of have the idea that it's only Black founders that have uniquely bad pitch decks. I judged a competition yesterday for the UN. These were all folks that kind of were from like Oxford, Cambridge. Most of them were scientists. Scientists, PhDs, have the absolute worst pitch decks because they know nothing about business, right? So, but they still get funded. So
they get funded.
So the idea is that it's not just Black people that have bad pitch decks. Most people have sucky pitch decks. And to the question about the pipeline, there's also a lot of Black people who've gone to better schools than most of the VCs have. They've had great careers at McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, as many kind of top brands as you can. I'm not saying that investors have to choose every and any Black person that comes to the door, but there are enough of us that have kind of built up amazing track records and we still don't get funded. So that's a problem. Why don't we start at the top with the creme de la creme of the Black community and make that 1% that gets funded now 2%, 3%, because there are enough of us that we should be being represented better than we are right now. And a lot of my friends are brilliant Black people. They can do an amazing pitch deck. They can do an amazing pitch, and they still wouldn't get funded by the majority of VCs.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Just to echo Gary, it goes back to that whole having to be 10 times better. Like if our pitch deck doesn't look good, that's what we're being judged on. Whereas the scientist who's white, whose pitch deck wasn't good, got funded. This is what I'm saying is the problem. Like there's an expectation where we must be perfect just to get the bare minimum. And that in itself is the problem that we are battling. And I just think that, changing the narrative is changing that. Like, it's okay for us to, like Gary said, we can start with the creme de la creme. Let us start with that because they do exist. But then let's make sure that we're developing the rest of everybody else, the pipeline. Let them get the opportunities too. They don't have to be the 10. They could be 5, and that's still good enough because actually they're incredible in their own way. They're still 5 times better than the next person. But yeah, I mean, we wrote an open letter to VCs, right? About the fact that even during Black Lives Matter, I don't think I've seen any in Europe even release a statement like regarding it. This is the biggest moment right now, and not a single venture capitalist in Europe even feels compelled to say anything. That in itself shows you the problem that we have. It's just so kind of out of sight, out of touch. It's not even their problem. I heard, let me not repeat it, but like I've heard comments of like, Black underrepresented founders doesn't go with unicorn. Like it's stuff like that. Their view is the view. And I'm just saying that, we should enforce a minimum. Like everyone, like 13 billion euros last year was spent in terms of funding. So why can't we be committed 1%, right? At the moment, I think Black women is 0.002%. Like, why must that be the standard? We're asking just for 1% of a fund and let, Black VCs or whatever be the ones that give it out. If you don't see it because, I don't know, mentally it's just Black founders doesn't go with big businesses. So I believe, yeah, there must be something done where it should be committed. I don't see it as tokenism. I don't see it as, it's just change it. No, give us that money and we'll do what we need to do with that money. I'd rather have the money than not have the money. So yeah, I definitely think that's something that does need to be done. And it was in that open letter that we signed that we want 1% of all the European VCs funds.
And just to add, so Val, I think the idea is amazing. I think we need to do it as a collective. There needs to be some sort of mandate that pushes all investment firms globally to commit a certain percentage of their revenue towards investing in Black businesses. And it absolutely needs to be mandated. And the only way that we can get this mandated is if we come together as a collective, you know, and we all sign something and say, actually, you know, all companies, Black owned, white owned, you know, all ethnicities owned, come together and commit some money. The way I look at it, it's a missed opportunity. It's not a charitable cause. This you know, event is great and it's charity focused, but you know, let's all, you know, we like to make money, let's be honest, you know, and not investing in this pool of very talented individuals is a missed opportunity. You know, so that, you know, all investors and venture capital firms need to look at our ethnic group and Black people as a missed opportunity, and you're missing out by not investing in us.
And just to finally add that we don't want 1%. We'd like the amount that is commensurate with the representation that we are in the community. So in the States, that's 15%. In the UK, that's 4%. And we don't want to be lumped in a group called BAME or anything like that. This is just how many Black people there are and how much they of the population they represent, and funding that is commensurate with that amount coming down to the community. And that is the final ask.
This is wonderful. Kike, Isha, Chanel, Gary, there's no feeling. I think everybody was watching can see that something is happening here. Like when you have like 5 brilliant Black brains like this, if we find the time to do it right, there is no one who is watching now who can't tell that something is coming. And this is how we build our own companies. It was founded on these principles. When something is right, smell right, feels right, we do not back down. So we are going to do this, but we are going to do this right. And I want to thank you for taking the time to start the conversation that we're going to build on to do something within the next weeks and months. You could see from my speech and from the different conversation that we had that we don't like the talkers. If there's something I don't want in my door, it's talkers, because it's because of talkers that where we are, because people keep talking. We want doers. Let's try one day at a time to get one of the things we just talked about to get moving, so that when somebody talks to you or to us in July, there is already something in play that's pragmatic and realistic. Thank you so much for coming on. And Gary, thank you for overseeing the whole thing. We appreciate you a lot. A lot of love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Coding Class. My name is Mr. Marciano, and today I'll be teaching you about some complex codes. As you can see, there are several dynamics that go into creating the best code ever. There's start sound, there's smart sound.
You know you gotta try your best. Never give up, never give up. Say you're gonna try your best. Never give up, never give up. D to the E to the S, T. You rockin' with the best and you know that's me. When the feeling down, you know I got my team. That'll be to the E to the S, T. Hey, this is Jalen, and I came to win. Put myself even harder when I'm struggling. Got my days that I keep my head to the ground. All I need is my friends who come around. Hey, it may be rough. That don't mean you ain't gotta give up. Look up to the sky so you can see the limit.
Because you know, in the moments that you're feeling so low, just take it as you turn up to grow. Leave all your troubles at the door. Yeah, keep your head up, head up.
All you gotta do is try. And if you fail, you gotta keep your head up high. Don't let nobody tell you that you're wasting your life. So, it's time to overcome. Trust and believe it's you that's number one. When I'm feeling down, you know I got my team. They're the B to the E to the S, T.
Now everybody say it one time.
Keep your head up, keep your head up.
Now everybody go and scream along.
Keep your head up, keep your head up.
Now everybody say it one time.
Keep your head up, keep your head up. Cause you're the B to the E to the S, T.
Because you know, in the moments that you're feeling so low, just take it as you turn up to grow.
gonna try your best. Never give up. Never give up. Say you're gonna try your best. Never give up. Never give up. You gotta try your best. Never give up. Never give up.
Hello, Mindy.
Hi, Val. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming here on. It's amazing to see you, and you look fabulous.
Well, thank you. My husband said, "Oh, you got all dolled up." And I said, "I'm going to be on video." he said, "Oh, I thought it was a phone call." I said, "No, it's on video. It's live." So it was so sweet. He's like, "Oh,
That's
you got
amazing. That's really amazing. Mindy, I got to tell you, thank you so much. I just have one question for you before you get started.
Okay.
Why did you pick up my call?
Why did I pick it up? Well, I didn't know the number. I didn't notice the number. And I do professional speaking. And sometimes I get calls from random numbers. So I tend to answer probably more than I should. I get spam calls. But I kept talking to you because I liked what you said. I kept talking to you because you used the words self-accountability and transparency and pragmatism. And those were words that resonated with me. So in our conversation, that's why I kept listening to you.
Thank you so much. The floor is yours, Mindy.
Okay, thank you, Val. So I would just say to our audience and anyone else who picks up this video later and takes the opportunity to look at it, I want to thank Val, Inzi, and Bevran Foundation for creating this vision, for having this vision, and then taking action. And I have to say that when he did find me, I asked the question, well, how did you find me? And they went on a search looking for people that they felt like would represent and support the actions. So what we're doing today is we're looking to raise money for Black entrepreneurs and raising capital. And Val's already put in some effort to talk about how meaningful that will be and how important that will be. And I commend that. I happen to be a serial entrepreneur, and I'm going to explain to you a little bit backwards and how that came to be. I most recently opened a company in 2018 called Workplace Healing. It's Workplace Healing, and I co-founded it with Lisa Cooper. And we speak nationally and internationally. We present a workshop, and our goal is to help employers be able to reintegrate employees after they've had a life disruption. And I'll go into more in depth about what my personal life disruption was in just a moment. So I opened Workplace Healing LLC because I had a vision, and I felt there was a need to help people get back to work, get back into their work efforts. And obviously this was started before COVID-19, before everyone in the entire world is experiencing the exact same life disruption. And then before that, I was part of founding, again, an experience called 7 Days, Make a Ripple, Change the World. It's kind of a long name, but if you say it the way we say it, 7 days, make a ripple, change the world. And that's what we look for in our events. And it is 7 days long. And in 2020, we actually went virtual, and we were able to have all of our experiences except one, which was a community walk. But that experience started, and that event was put together in 2015. It's mostly located in the Kansas City area, Overland Park, Kansas, and Kansas City, in that entire metropolitan area. It was created by my family and other families in the community. And then before 7 days, we created Faith Always Wins Foundation. Like I said, I'm a serial entrepreneur. So Faith Always Wins Foundation is a 501c3. And the mission of Faith Always Wins Foundation is to promote dialogue for the betterment of our world through kindness, faith, and healing. And I think that that is how Val's team found me. When I started asking them, how did you locate me? They really pinpointed that and what I've been doing and what I've been working on. And what you're wondering is now, why did I do all of that? Because before that, I was in wealth management. Before that, I'd helped co-found a wealth management company. So what happened is, In April 2014, my family, we were the victims of a white supremacy hate crime. On April 12th, 2014, we sat at a round table in my kitchen, and it was my dad and my mom and my husband and my 2 boys. We were a family of 4 at that time. And we were discussing what was going to be happening the next day. We were discussing our life, just like you all discuss your family life. And at that time, my older son, Reet, who was 14, and we spelled his name R-E-A-T, he had a singing competition the next day. And my younger son, Lucas, was going to have a lacrosse game. And like many families do, you have to divide and conquer what's going to happen. And so I couldn't take Reet that day to his competition, and my mom couldn't either. Lynn and I, my husband, we went to Lucas's lacrosse game. And then, so my dad took Reet, and that's how they were together that day. And that's how this story transpired. My dad said, I'll take him. And so on April 13th, a white supremacist came into Overland Park, Kansas, and murdered my dad and my son. My dad, William Corcoran, MD, he was a physician. He was still practicing. He was 69 years old when he lost his life. My son, Reet, was 14 years old, and he was a performer, a singer, a dancer. He was going to audition for a competition at the Jewish Community Center. Friends, my faith is Christianity, and as you can tell, I'm also white, so I'm a white Christian. And we were victims of a hate crime against Jews. The shooter did not murder any Jews. He murdered one other person, Terry Lamano. The shooter drove to another location and shot at many people, numerous people. But he murdered my dad and son, Reet. And since that day, I have felt it's my mission, it's my calling to help other people not experience the same thing. And I heard Val say that just earlier. I heard him say, we're doing this today, we're raising money today, and we want to help Black Lives Matter. We want to help Black momentum. We want to help people around us because we don't want this abuse to continue, and we don't want inequality to continue. And I liked what Val said to me. He said, many people are all talk, but a lot of people take action. Some people will take action. And that's what I did. And that's why we created the Faith Always Wins Foundation. And what we do, faith, a lot of people think, well, faith, okay, that's Christian. That's a Christian foundation. And it's not. It's all faiths. And I tell people it's from agnostic to atheist, Buddhist, Judaism, Christianity, Hindu. We have learned and explored all faiths. And if anyone wants to delve into what we did this year in 2020, because we went virtual, we got to use our YouTube channel. So that had not been much that we had really tapped into, but now we have about 15 videos from 2020 that explain exactly what 7 days Make a Ripple, Change the World does. It's about kindness, acts of kindness. My mom said right after my dad and son were murdered, she said, people have to do acts of kindness right now. I want people to do 7 days of kindness. And so we named it 7 days Make a Ripple, Change the World. And again, for 6 years, that's what we've been doing. This year, we had 22 high school students who were with us. So just like the Black Momentum team is working specifically to fund 50 people, 50 entrepreneurs, what we do in our work and what I focus on is helping students, helping high school students, because whose mindset can we help understand? Who's looking for what is their role in life? What's their purpose in life? And so we want to engage students to understand philanthropy and kindness and taking action. We want them to understand how to have a conversation with an adult. And so we mentor them. We had about 65 applications, and we had 22 students that helped us all year long plan 7 days Make a Ripple, Change the World. And when we had to go from a live event and make a huge pivot, so COVID-19 started affecting us about the weekend of March 13th. That's when we started seeing a big change. And we started our programming March 26th. And then we went on for an entire month. But we made it happen. We made it happen because we wanted to take action. We don't want hate to happen. People are not born with hate. Children are not born with hate. Babies were not born with hate. We are taught along our lives sometimes to fear the other. We are taught to be aware of the other. And to an extent, that's helpful, for our own safety. But we have taken it to such an extreme that sometimes we're fearful when we shouldn't be fearful. And many times fear is taken to an extreme. And that's how the shooter ended up murdering my dad and son. He feared Jews. He feared the faith of Judaism. And he had written a big manifesto. And he made it very clear that he wanted to kill Jews that day. And so most of my focus has been on interfaith conversations and interfaith relationships and, dialogue. We want people to understand one another and not fear. And then that moves me back to now workplace healing. So workplace healing was created because as I transitioned out of my employment, I was the CEO of Boyer Corporate Wealth Management, and I loved my job and I loved my career. But after a tragedy like this happens, many people tend to look for new purpose in life. And I was looking for new purpose, and I had a vision. I had a vision that there are people who have life disruptions similar to mine, maybe not as just tragic, and then they need to go back to work, and they need help reintegrating, and employers need help figuring out how to reintegrate them. And so workplace healing became very important to me. I wanted to use my experience as a co-founder, as a CEO, as a person who had been affected by significant tragedy. I wanted to help employers understand how they could do that there is a step in a healing process in our workplace, because we spend so many hours in our workplace. And now during COVID, we're spending a lot of time at our homes, but still engaged in work and trying to juggle all of that. And now it's the healing process and the grief that we're all in has been monumental. The grief that we all experienced and still experience from COVID-19 has just been layered and layered and layered after the incidences that have happened, the tragedies that have happened. And so the importance of what Val and the Black Momentum organization are doing right now, it's a huge process for everyone to look at what you're feeling in your heart, look at how you feel and what you want to do and when you want to take action. Val has actually given you, and the Burbrand Foundation has given you an easy step. They're not asking you to open a company. They're not asking you to create your own event. They're asking you to help fund, because they're going to take action on our behalf, and they're going to help fund these 50 entrepreneurs. So that's my story. My story is about a huge life event that happened to me and me taking action. And I think you can take action too. So I would hope that you do that not only today, but every day in your lives. Val, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share.
I gotta say, Mindy, thank you so much. This is impressive and touching since the first time you and I spoke. I have a question for you. You are a white woman, and you navigate an environment, either personal or professional, that is combined of white, Black, Asian, Arab, all races. What was your feeling when this whole thing with George Floyd and the protests happened? From I was there, I have been there, to I was able to bounce from it, to, oh, I have a lot of my friends that are affected. Can you walk us through the mix of feelings following that?
Yes, Val, let me tell you just very specifically too, and everyone that's watching. So on April 13th, I actually found my dad and son. I found my dad right after he'd been murdered. So, and then Reet was dying when I found him. He had been shot, but he was not deceased when I found him. And he lost his life in the ambulance about 30 minutes later. So I found my dad right after he'd been murdered. And when I saw, now going back to the George Floyd video that I saw, when I saw that, I have a visceral reaction to that. And sometimes Val, I'll tell you, I crawl inside. I crawl inside myself, and I don't want to talk, and I don't want to post, and I don't want to share, because it is so painful. It takes me back to that parking lot. And then after I have time to process it, I felt like I needed to speak up. So what did I feel? I felt grief. I felt remorse. I felt anger. I felt all of those things. But I also felt that visceral reaction of finding my dad in the parking lot. So for me, it's a very personal reaction. The shooter was not in the parking lot at the time. I didn't see my dad lose his life. I saw him afterward. But what I think happened when you mentioned, and what did I feel during the protest, is I wanted to be there. I'm in an area of the country where those weren't happening. I'm not in a big city right now. I'm in a small community, and we came together. Our church group came together, and we prayed together. And I know that many people will say, well, prayer doesn't help, or prayer's not going to solve it. Sometimes prayer is what is needed to find the vision, right? So sometimes prayer and thought and silence are needed for people who need to hear what the next step is. And then for other people who can and want to just take to the streets to be with other people, I understand the need to hold hands with other people and to link arms and to say that wasn't right, because that happened at our event as well. So I wasn't at the walk or march, you might call it, but a group of students created a march after my dad and son and Terry Lamono were murdered. So it's very common for humans to follow their emotional path.
Yeah, that's it. What was the reaction of your Black friends looking at you? Were they more sympathizing with, oh, Mindy has gone through something like that? Or how were they responding to your willingness to help with this situation? Because you've recently created a group, you can talk about it a little bit,
Yes.
for white and Black women. What was the reaction of the Black community? And then walk us through how that group actually works.
Yes, thank you. So the reaction of the group has been fantastic. Our next scheduled Zoom call, will be in late July, and it will be the third time that we've gotten together. And so Val, it came from the fact that my son would be turning 21, would have turned 21 on May 21. And in February, the Ahmaud Arbery shooting happened. And my group of immediate friends, my inner circle, we're all white on a Marco Polo. We're all talking to one another.
Try to clarify for the audience, that's another African Americans who was shot.
That's right. Ahmaud Arbery, was murdered, and we were incensed by that. And we wanted to do something about it, and we were searching for what to do. So I reached out to Dr. Nicole Price out of Kansas City, and she runs a company called Lively Paradox. And Nicole and I had connected via 7 days. She was one of our facilitators. And I asked Nicole, I said, can you help me figure out how to have a conversation between Black women and white women, a group? And she asked me, how many Black women do you know? And I was on a walk. And I stopped on my walk, and I thought, okay, and I started naming them. And I was like, Lisa, Doris, Melanie, Kiana. I started naming them. And I said, I know 8 Black women off the top of my head. I said, that's who I'm going to call. So it was 8 Black women and 8 white women. And I named it REAT. It's respect, engage, appreciate, trust. And it's an acronym for my son's name. And the first hour and a half that we were together, you can ask women one question, and then they just talk and talk and talk. And so we're moms, we're wives. Some of us have been divorced. Several women on the call, Val, have lost children to white supremacy. And so we came together and we decided to read a book together. So we read The Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. We read that. And then in June, we met and we had a discussion, and we're learning from one another. And now we're taking an implicit bias test. So each of us have said we're going to take an implicit bias test, because We need to understand ourselves. We need to have self-awareness. I need to have self-awareness of why am I fearful? What upsets me? And in a situation, what can I do about that? And it takes time to process once you learn what your biases are.
That's impressive. But one of the questions I want to ask you is, with a lot of Black people, either be African Americans or Africans or Black people who are living outside of the US, have gone through a lot over decades, right? It's very difficult for them to open up and trust that a white person actually cares and means what she says. Do you think it's going to be a process? It's going to take time. But do you think it's a must? What do you respond to people who say that Black people should just organize among themselves and that's the only way it's going to work because only Black people know what Black people have gone through and actually means what they say when they want to help, when they want to support? Or do you kind of agree with the Bervin mindset, which is there is nothing you can do by yourself? You need other people. You will not change the way you have been operating because in order to build a business, you need partners, investors, clients. It doesn't matter where they're from, what color they are. What matters is what their value are and what kind of interest they are looking for or putting forward. What is your read, and also what is your kind of advice or suggest solution platform for this?
Okay, so Val, let me start by saying I will never know what it's like to be Black. I won't.
100%, you will never.
I won't. I will not. And I'm not trying to be Black. I'm not trying to, I can't. And it's a very vulnerable situation. Everything that I have done has not been easy. And so people have to make a choice. When they feel that uncomfortableness, are they willing to step into it? Okay, now maybe I step into it easier than other people because I've gone to hell and back. I saw my dad murdered. I lost my son. I know what that's like. And I would tell you that you mentioned Black people, African American people who have had struggles, okay? They know how hard it can be. So allow the uncomfortable to happen and speak to trusted white people. I will tell you, one of my girlfriends, Lisa, who is on this group, she and I have been friends the longest. And she didn't open up to me when she had racism, racial problems at work. She didn't tell me. And on our call in June, I said, I'm sorry I never asked. And I should have asked, but I was afraid to ask. I was embarrassed to ask. I didn't want to bring up race. I wasn't supposed to bring up race. And she didn't want to tell me because she didn't want to change our friendship. And Val, it needs to happen one-on-one and in small groups. So our group is 8 and 8, and it's big enough. Actually, it's now 9 and 8, but it's large enough. So I would recommend what people could do is find one person that you feel like you can start talking to that's of a different color from you, and have a coffee and have a conversation, because we do need to talk about race. We do need to talk about what happened, because I want to help. And I understand, why would they trust me? Why would they trust a white girl? I grew up in a white town with no African Americans in my town. I didn't engage with Black people until I was in college. I understand that there can be some difficulties, but you have to, as a person who wants to engage but maybe afraid to engage, 1 or 2 people at a time. And I think that, like you're saying, you're asking for help and you're reaching among everyone. Val, we're all human first. We're all human first, and we need to start with that.
Mindy, thank you so much. You are as authentic as it comes. And the same Mindy I spoke 2 days ago is the same I'm seeing here. And that's what at Bervin we're all about, putting our money and our time where it is, because we like authenticity. It's very hard today to find people who actually mean what they say. When you go online, you see all those statements that all those companies and celebrities are making. And when you actually get to talk to them behind closed door, it's a totally different setup. So I really like the idea that I can talk with you privately and publicly and see the same person, because it is hard to find real people today, even in business and in life is a different story. So I want to thank you. I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here with us and share with us your experience. And I truly look forward to see what the Bervan organization and your multiple companies will be able to achieve together, and how we can utilize your experience to help Black momentum grow.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
I'm honored to be asked, and I'm happy to continue helping. Thank you.
I was born by the river, yes, in a little town, just like the river. I've been running ever since. It's been a long, 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 long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. It's been time living, yeah, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there, oh, beyond the sky. It's been a long, 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 a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. When is it gonna come? Oh, yes it is. So I go to my brother and my sisters too. Yeah. And they say, please, 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 please. But those same old persons, yes, when I ask them to forgive me, can they help me for what I did? They just keep on knocking me on my knees. Hey, I was born by the river, in a little town, and just like the rivers, I've been running, I'm running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it is. Come on, baby. Come on. We need to change, oh yes we do. We need a change. Change yourself from the inside out. Come on now. Change. Oh yeah. I pray for change. If my people will call on my name, they will humble themselves and pray, seek my face and turn from the wicked ways. Then I will heal the land. Heal our land, Lord. Heal our land, Lord. Cause we need change. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
give out. Come on, Black momentum, we need it. We need it, we need it, we need it, yeah. Hey. I'll take it. If we ever do it again, we're gonna breathe. Take a deep breath and see how you need it. We need change. My. Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord. Change me, oh Lord, change me, oh no, change, Lord. Oh, we can't do it without you, Lord. We need change. Yeah. Oh, change. We need change. This has been an amazing 3.5 hours. I myself have learned a lot, and we're still surprised every day to hear the things that we hear. We think this was an exceptional get-together, bringing Black entrepreneurs, police officers, artists. We thank you for taking the time. We know that everybody's busy now to tune in and be with us. We hope that some of the things that you have heard will shape or wake up some of the stuff that we're sleeping in what you do or in what you think. We are opening our platform for everyone who is truly willing to help to make this situation better, and everyone who's willing to help empower Black entrepreneurs to join us in this fight. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to be a process. But we are willing to take on the fight and roll up our sleeves. We want to invite you to continue utilizing the link that is provided on the chat to make a donation, to bid on auctions. The auction is going to be open until Sunday, July 5th at 11:30 p.m. So you can place your bids, you can make a donation, you can share it with as many people as you can, because we need everybody to be involved. This is not going to be something that we will do on our own. Our ability to raise awareness and bring people to the table so that they can contribute in making this thing better will definitely be the key in getting this thing off the ground. The Bervin Foundation, Bervin Capital, Corona Opportunity Fund, the Black Momentum, we are saying thank you to you. I want to say thank you to everybody on the team who worked so hard to make this a possibility. I want to thank Raquel Aurelia for the amazing job that she does, for her support to our efforts and our initiatives. I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank all of our teams, the musicians, and I want to thank all of you guys who are either watching live or rewatching it. And I hope that you will be able to reach out to us so that together we can work. Thank you so much, and have an amazing weekend and an amazing start of the week. Black Momentum, the economic response. We're out.